Hello everyone, this is Jesse, and I finally completed this project of creating a presentation, which I guess is essentially a virtual pilgrimage after Lee and I got back from the Holy Land. This is a trip we took at the end of February through early March. So this was kind of my Lenten task or sacrifice objective I assigned to myself. I gave up some few hours of sleep to put this together, but I kind of want to give it my best and give the most accurate reflection of what this was like. And by the length of this and hearing myself talk for 3+ hours, I'm questioning whether or not anyone's going to have the stamina to make it through. So I definitely encourage you to pause, and if you have to watch this in a couple different sessions, then maybe that's best, especially with my monotonous voice. My daughter is trying to tell me that I need to spice it somehow, so maybe I will speak in a falsetto voice and talk like this for a while, but no, that's not going to work. I don't think you guys will appreciate that. So um, I did the best I can. I'm sorry I'm so boring, but I'm going to maybe throw in my wife in here in a couple of these slides to kind of switch it up, and she can talk in a normal voice, and um, I'm sure you'll appreciate it. So buckle up. This is quite the journey. I didn't leave anything out, and it's gonna be fun. Okay, so introduction here. Why did I do this? Getting questions from people asking me, "How was your trip to the Holy Land?" It didn't feel right just to kind of send them some pictures and like, "Hey, go check this out. This is what it was like," or just talking to people on the spot. Wasn't like an accurate enough reflection of what it was like over there. So, yeah, if you just saw pictures, you'd say, "Oh, I just see a bunch of rocks." And so this is I'm wanting to do this presentation, even though, like I said, I hate my voice. It's boring, but and I pulled in some extra, additional research and just to kind of fill in some of the gaps from what we had, and just to give proper meaning to everything and tie everything together, because I guess I'm just a perfectionist and nerdy like that. So this was, like I said here, like, was this a pilgrimage, a tourist attraction, or both? I'd say it was really like both, right? I wanted to, going into this, I'm like, it's Lent. I'm going to go in this with good intentions, and it's going to be prayerful, and it's going to be peaceful, but you are a pilgrim amongst other pilgrims, so that makes you a tourist. There's there's lots of people, and although relatively speaking, it wasn't that busy for us than maybe the summertime, but um, you were kind of going in and out of the modes, so you kind of see me and see that kind of reflected in our pictures in this presentation. And then lastly, I put this visual out here of, raking leaves when it's what this is like. It was just um, pretty exhausting because you're just doing a lot every day, and you're just taking it all in, and you're just piling things on top of another, and it felt like, you're raking leaves and you're putting all these leaves in the bag, and then you let go of the pressure, then they all kind of come out. And that's what my brain was like. My brain was like a bag of leaves, um, just kind of exploding, but it was a good feeling. It was I wouldn't have traded this experience for anything else. It's just, I'm glad I just had time to kind of unpack this, and now I get to share it with everyone. So let's keep moving. Okay, I just switched headsets because I think that other one was not as good as this one, so hopefully you can hear me better. All right, here we go. This is the first views that we were getting as we're coming we were flying into Tel Aviv, Israel. We actually, before this view, saw some of the Greek islands, so I was getting excited to see all this cool and new things I've never seen before. 6,500 miles and 14 hours later on this airplane, we start to see the first views of Israel. So as you can see, there's uh, clustered villages versus, in the States you would see, suburbs, and you're already kind of getting an idea of like, wow, we're not in Kansas anymore, right? Um, this is how, this is how the homes are built over in Israel, right? Extended families, they'll all live in one building. There's no mortgages over there. Banks don't just give you 30-year loans. What you do is whatever money you have, you build as much as you can, and then you just add one level or section of the house at a time. So it might take you years to get the size of house that you need, but eventually you get there. So as money becomes available, you start building upon your house, and everyone lives together, and everyone's happy, and no one fights, right? I'm sure it's all peachy, and yeah, probably not, but But it is great to see families kind of live together, right? And versus being separate apart and maybe not see each other as often. Okay, as we jump right in here, so this is considered day two. We're going to stay in the Notre Dame Hotel in Jerusalem. The first day was pretty much flying since we left kind of late, and I want to get us started with I guess it's kind of a little prayer, little ditty here from St. John Paul II that gives kind of puts us in the mode that we're going to be in as I take you through this virtual pilgrimage. So he says, to go in a spirit of prayer in the area marked especially by God's intervention gives us a vivid sense of a God who has gone before us and leads us on, who himself set out on man's path, a God who does not look down on us from on high, but who became our traveling companion. The pilgrimage to the holy places thus becomes a highly meaningful experience, and in a sense is evoked by every other Jubilee pilgrimage. The Church cannot forget her roots. We must all make that inward journey which seeks to move us away from whatever in us and around us is contrary to God's law, so as to be able to encounter Christ fully, professing our faith in Him and receiving the abundance of His mercy. In the Gospel, Jesus seems always to be traveling about. He seems to be in a hurry to move from one place to another in order to proclaim the imminent coming of God's kingdom. Let us all feel touched by His voice, His call, His summons to a new life. I say to everyone, let us set out in the footsteps of Christ. All right, here we go. Let's charge ahead and get to showing the first picture. Here is the Notre Dame Hotel in Jerusalem, as I was just talking about earlier. Beautiful architecture. We saw beautiful artwork everywhere, right? I'm used to staying in cheap hotels, and so this was pretty swanky for Lee and I to, we pulled up in the bus and we're like, wow, this isn't the Motel 6. I was expecting, what I'm used to staying in. So really cool, just amazing architecture and, a great start to our pilgrimage to stay in this beautiful hotel. Here is the room. There's Lee sitting on the bed. Room wasn't really that fancy, but had really high ceilings, and I thought it was kind of interesting, right? You're used to staying in the hotels, and there might be a Bible in the drawer, but there's no TV in this room, and there's a cross on the wall, and you're like, hey, this feels pretty good. We started out day two with mass in this beautiful chapel inside the hotel. It was huge, right? I mean, this would be a separate, church, separate building, but this is actually inside the hotel, and beautiful acoustics. Really had beautiful acoustics in many of the churches we had, and just a great way to start off this pilgrimage by being in this beautiful chapel. And then here, this is actually, I grabbed this picture from a different day to show what the nighttime view is from the hotel. This is overlooking the old city there. You can see the walls in the foreground there. In the background is the skylight at night. Okay, I'm gonna get a little fancy here because I discovered when you convert this to a video and try to post this on YouTube, you can't get the any videos to show up, and I have some clips that I kind of wanted to show. So you're gonna see my ugly face here for a while. So day three, you've noticed the first couple of days we had to cross time zones and we didn't get much accomplished, but we're on day three now, and now you're gonna see us pack in a lot of sites. So we started out with going to the Ein Kerem village, right? This is where Mary did the 90-mile trek from Nazareth to visit Elizabeth in the visitation. So try to create some visuals of watching Mary go through this valley, walking in haste to the Ein Kerem village. Here is let's step back, start with the Old Testament history. During the reign of Saul, Jeremiah brought the Ark of the Covenant to the city of David, and that was brought upon this hill. So this gives us kind of our first visual of looking at something and trying to imagine, thousands of years ago of this actually happening in this area. So I'm already starting to get my mind blown, right? So we're trying to imagine all this happening. So we always, the pilgrimage is always begins with two people, Mary and John the Baptist. These are your forerunners, right? The two that lead us to Jesus. Elizabeth greeted Mary as the mother of my Lord. And in 431 AD, the church declared Mary as the mother of God. So here is the Church of the Visitation that depicts, as you can see, this, the scene here depicts the greeting of Elizabeth and Mary. So this becomes the perfect parallel to teach us that Mary is the new Ark of the Covenant, right? I mentioned the old Ark of the Covenant, which was actually lost somewhere, which I don't know how you lose the Ark of the covenant of God, but now the new Ark of the Covenant is Mary, right? Because Jesus is in her womb. And then I'm going to show this video of the Magnificat. This is where I'm going to try to get fancy.
Because he has regarded the lowliness of his handmaid. For behold, henceforth all generations shall call me blessed, because he who is mighty has done great things for me, and holy is his name. And for generations upon generations is his mercy to those who fear him. He has shown light with his arm. He has scattered the proud in the conceit of their heart. He has put down the mighty from their thrones, and has exalted the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things, and the rich he has sent away empty. He has given help to Israel, his servant, mindful of his mercy, even as he spoke to our fathers, to Abraham and to his posterity forever. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
So it was a bit rudimentary, but just want to show as you can see, all the different signs in a different language is the Magnificat. So it's cool just to see, instead of just English and Spanish, and you're in a worldwide location, you get to see, many different languages, and shows you the true universality of the church with that. So it's just so cool. Just want to show that to you. Please don't make fun of me for showing my phone up to the camera to find a back door to get this video to work, because it wouldn't work any other way. Okay, moving on to the Church of the Visitation. So tradition claims that after being warned by an angel of the approach of King Herod's soldiers during the massacre of the Holy Innocents, St. Elizabeth hid her son, St. John the Baptist, behind this rock right here. So immediately, this is kind of like one of the first things I could kind of touch, and my question, I went up right up to one of our tour guides and was like, so how do you know this is the actual rock, right? And so this is where I discovered in the Holy Land, there's this saying called here or near, right? How do we know is it here or where? So from what I've discovered, and this is going to kind of come up in other sites, is that there's a certain level of confidence on where actual sites are, right? Sometimes it's within, sometimes we know exactly this is the spot, right? Extremely highly confident that it is right here. Sometimes it's maybe a couple of feet away, maybe it's a few yards away, but generally, it's somewhere in the vicinity. And I'll actually go into that in the next slide, a little more detail. Showed a little picture here. I'm bringing pictures in here so it's easier to kind of see versus once you see some of these slides. I've packed a lot in for you. There's Lee and I kneeling and praying in front of the altar, and there's a larger view. You can see Mary, and then the angels and saints, or communion of saints up above her, and a larger view of that. And then here is us again with our name tags on in front of a painting. And here is a blown up view of the painting of Mary holding the baby Jesus. And here is a description of this painting coming from Revelation 11. A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun with the moon on her feet. So I've never seen this painting before. It's huge, as you can see, kind of relative to our size there. And so it's beautiful, and great picture, and a great church to visit. Okay, I said I'd go through, I think this is important, right? Because it's just going to be a prevailing question, I think, on most people's minds of, seeing is believing, and now that we have an archaeological site here, I really want to know, like, how did we find out whether or not the location of these sites are accurate? So there are 4 factors that are involved. All right, number 1 is oral tradition. Before any of the books of the New Testament were written, Christian life and worship was organized around these holy places. The shepherds near Bethlehem would have definitely told their children, their grandchildren, of how the angel had given them the news. It's something that, a profound moment in your life like that, you definitely would have shared it probably every day of your life, right? Because how many people get to see the choir of angels show up in the night sky? So as the news spread far, many would come from the ends of the earth to see the manger. This is a quote from Saint John Chrysostom and the Archbishop of Constantinople way back in 370 A.D. The locations of the Annunciation, the Crucifixion, and Resurrection would have clearly been transmitted by the early Jewish Christians from generation to generation. So remember, there's no internet. It's very important for you to pass this along through oral tradition, right? Telling your kids, telling your grandkids, so no one would forget and would get lost in history. Number two, and this is one of the most ironic things, is that second factor is pagan shrines as markers. In 135 AD, the pagan emperor Hadrian constructed a platform over the hill of Calvary and the tomb of Jesus, erecting a statue of Jupiter over one and a temple to Venus over the other, while ordering a grove to be planted around the cave of Bethlehem in honor of the pagan god Adonis. His attempts to replace Christian worship at these sites ironically helped to preserve their identity for the Emperor Constantine to easily locate them 200 years later, and then he would build churches over them. So how funny, the pagan Emperor Hadrian wants to stop Christianity from spreading, and he thought that if he would block them off and put pagan shrines over these, it actually helped us perfectly or identify them and perfectly preserve them, and then get churches over them later on to continue the preservation over the many years. All right, the third factor is evidence of archaeology. By the end of the 20th century, professional archaeologists had unearthed evidence confirming the location of more than half of the approximately 475 places that were mentioned in the Bible. So incredible that there is that many places that were identified, right? Half of them, and we saw, I felt like we saw half of them for how busy we were, but I don't know, would we see like 30 or 40? I lost track, but archaeology is your third factor for accuracy of sites. And then number four is the greatest question, right? And this is a question that comes up in many aspects of faith. Is it really necessary? Like, is finding the exact spot of any of these sites really necessary? Does it matter? We can't fully authenticate some of the sites. St. Jerome declared, we cannot tie down to one small portion of the earth him whom heaven itself is unable to contain. Rather than becoming distracted by the question, is this the exact spot? It is better to focus on what happened. What matters to Christians is the belief that God the Father sent his Son on earth for the salvation of the human race. Thus the Holy Land is more permeated by the presence of God and the faith of holy people than any pilgrim can comprehend. So there you go. This is going to be something to keep in mind as I show you many of these sites. Okay, hopefully ESPN doesn't go off on my phone during this part, but I'm just going to keep pushing through here. Birthplace of John the Baptist, right? This is since we're the greeting of Mary with Elizabeth, we're obviously in the same spot of where John the Baptist would have been born. So here is me, little old me, here standing in front of the church and then the home of St. John the Baptist. So there's a point where John the Baptist's influence starts to fade, right? Because Jesus is taking his place. Jesus is baptizing more people and he's attracting John's followers, but John is not envious, of course. He's content and he rejoices, right? John says he must increase and I must decrease. John doesn't care about his own success. He only cares that Jesus is known and loved. So how about our own projects and accomplishments, right? This is time for internal reflection. All that matters in our lives is that we do good for others and people come closer to Jesus. So here we are, we get to go down, right? So this is very common in the Holy Land. You're going below, right? You're talking a couple thousand years. So things are buried. And so you're generally going underground into caves and these places to kind of see these things. And so this is we're approaching the site where John the Baptist was born. And then here it is. So this is a spot that's marked fairly accurately, right? Within this little emblem here marks the exact spot where St. John the Baptist was born. And there is Lee kneeling down and praying. We all kind of had to take our turns. There's a large group of us, so you get like a few seconds to kind of say a quick prayer and venerate some of these spots and try to think and pray a little more in depth later on. And this is just a little icon here that signifies that this is the spot, St. John the Baptist. So real quick, forgot to mention there's some bonus coverage on that previous site of John the Baptist birthplace that I'm going to come back almost at the end of this presentation. So stay tuned for some bonus coverage on that. There's more to come there. All right, moving on to crossing over to Bethlehem. So guess where we're going? So we are going into the West Bank, Palestine area, and this was just a picture that I kind of got as we're walking down the street. Just kind of a cool little shot with the city in the background. Uh, here you get an idea, right, of what's going on here with the large wall separating the West Bank um, and the Palestine area. And then here's a sign that I took a picture of to kind of show you the how these two sides feel against each other. It says this road leads to Area A under the Palestine Authority. The entrance for Israeli citizens is forbidden, dangerous to your lives, and is against the Israeli law. So Palestinians versus Israelis is what you hear about in the news, and we get a chance to kind of see what that looks like in real life. So are we safe? So from their perspective, they see America as the wild, wild west, since everyone can own a gun, and that kind of scares the crap out of them. Where only the military has guns over here, so they feel like it's safer by having just the military have guns. And so but yet you see them everywhere, right? And so you hear from the news, and then people, these like kids that are like look like they're 16 years old and they're on their cell phones, but they have an AR-15 automatic weapon strapped around them. It kind of could make you feel uneasy, but we really never felt unsafe like the whole trip. It was Jerusalem especially you could walk late at night and be perfectly safe in any time. You could just kind of go wandering on your own and be perfectly fine. Much safer than probably some of even like here in Kansas City. I'd be definitely maybe more concerned about some places here in Kansas City versus anywhere over there. So from what you hear on the news, you might be more scared, but we felt pretty comfortable. So, but a funny story. This is Father David Barton over here. Lee and I taking a picture. I'll show you some more pictures of what he showed us. He told us a story about crossing over the fence, and he got over there and he forgot his driver's license or his passport, and so he gets through the checkpoint, and the security guard there has got a gun and says, where's your passport? And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I left my passport back at my hotel. I don't have it. And then, he says, where's your passport? And once again, Father David is like, I'm sorry, I just don't have it. And the third question is, where's your passport? So things are getting kind of tense. And so Father's like, I'm from America. I mean, I'm a Catholic priest. And, then the security guard said, well, so where are you from in America? And he said, Kentucky. And all of a sudden, he changes his demeanor and gets a smile on his face and says, Kentucky Fried Chicken. And yeah, everything is, the mood is lightened, and he's happy, and he thinks that's the coolest thing that he's from Kentucky, because Kentucky Fried Chicken is one of the fast food joints you see over there quite frequently. So there you go. Lesson learned. If you're ever caught in a jam in Israel or anywhere, it's worth a shot to tell people you're from Kentucky. It might just let you off the hook. Another bullet point I put here, I'll tell a story. You'll see pictures maybe later on that once we get back into Jerusalem. I was the one day when we had some free time, Lee and I were walking across the old city, and I was trying to use Google Maps, which is not very accurate when you're walking, and I tried to go through a Muslim checkpoint just because we were crossing over to see the place of the Last Supper, because Lee missed it because she was sick. And I tried to walk through there, and these two security guards with their guns step in front of me and says, Islam? And I said, nope, I'll go that way. So I did a quick 180. I didn't even pause. You just kind of want to like mind your own business, right? You just have no idea when you're just a foreign tourist in a foreign land. So okay, so we're going to try to do things kind of in order here. It might not be perfect, but it's going to be as close as we can get to the order of how events unfolded in our historical record of the life of Jesus. So we're moving on to Shepherd's Field, right? This is just right outside of Bethlehem. The population of Bethlehem at the time of Jesus was estimated to be between 2 and 3,000 people. Here's a picture of some of the buildings here in modern day Bethlehem. It's funny because as you're trying to get perspective from, you just create all these visuals in your mind and you watch movies. But I was wondering, like, how many shepherds were there? I thought, I'm from America, so everything is kind of big here. I'm not from Texas, otherwise everything would be really big. But I feel, I just assumed that there's like hundreds or 1,000 shepherds. Right? Everything just seemed to be bigger and more people in the scene. During on Christmas night, but there could have been, a couple of dozen or a dozen or who knows. It wasn't that many. Once you're there, you see it's just not that big and there's just not that many people. And then how far did they travel to Nativity, right? I just assumed that they're traveling over mountains of sand and, watching the little drummer boy. Like that's not how it is in reality. It was really close. The Shepherd's Field's just outside of the city. It wouldn't have taken them very far to get there. So here is a nice little statue here. You can see the sheep and the shepherd on this fountain here. Wasn't running with water. And then we saw some sheep kind of driving around in the bus to give you kind of an idea of accurate reflection of what this area is. Here's inside the small little chapel, at this spot in Shepherd's Field, and it says Gloria in Excelsis, right? The Angels We Have Heard on High song that we sing during Christmas. That was written above with the icons of the angels in that dome. And then there were paintings, and there's paintings and murals around that give you an idea of what this scene was like. So you can see the angels, and this is the birth of Jesus, obviously, with being in the nativity scene. Here's a view of kind of the shepherd's field with the angels appearing to the shepherds, and then there's the Star of David that their shepherds are following to get to the birthplace of Jesus. Okay, I'm going to try to get fancy again on this slide. So first of all, this continuation of the shepherd's field. So you can see the shepherds here, and these statues are being depicted in a way that is probably accurate, right? When you have the cherubim and the seraphim angels and their power and their shine brightness would cause you to duck and hide from that. So that it was something neat to see. And then a couple of pictures from the Shepherd's Field. I didn't get a chance to kind of go out and off the beaten path, right? We were kind of rushed, of course, on a lot of these sites because it's a big group and there's a lot to see. So didn't get a picture of there were some caves there that I could have got some shots of, but I didn't. That showed where the shepherds would have hid, kept their sheep, right, during the night. So one thing that is, my vision of this scene of the shepherds and I think of Charlie Brown Christmas, and so it was cool to see these quotes. Do not be afraid, for behold, I proclaim to you good news of great joy. This is from the angels, of course, and this is the scripture passage that Lina says that I'll show you here.
Sure, Charlie Brown, I can tell you what Christmas is all about. Lights, please. And there were in the same country shepherds, abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them. And the glory of the Lord shone round about them. And they were sore afraid. And the angel said unto them, Fear not, for behold, I bring you tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. And this shall be a sign unto you. You shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host praising God, and saying, Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men. That's what Christmas is all about, Charlie Brown.
Beautiful, right? Linus nails it. That's what Christmas is all about. I wanted to show that clip. He says it better than I could ever. So getting you prepared here for what's next here in the Nativity. Okay, moving on from the shepherd's field, and we were there during the night. During the daytime. It would have been nice to kind of go there at night and look up at the exact night sky where the angels appeared in the exact same spot. Surreal. These are just like, I'm gonna use the word surreal many times, right? Because it's just, you sit there and you look at these places and things, and you just can't believe that you're standing in the exact spot where these happen. So once again, we experienced this as we went to the church in the Nativity, which is fairly close to the Shepherd's Field. The first thing that I noticed, right, this is what my eyes pick up on, is I see Christmas lights on the church in the Nativity, and I think, wow, I bet you those Christmas lights have bragging rights on every single house and building and commercial space around the world, because these are authentic Christmas lights, right? They're actually on the house of God, right, where he was born. So if anyone can call themselves a Christmas light, these lights here are, authentic Christmas decorations. So just something that I picked up on. And then boom, I want to give you a little dose of reality here and just fill this slide up with what you generally will experience at the Holy Land, especially at a popular site like the Nativity. You're a pilgrim, but yet you're surrounded by tourists. Is what it feels like. There's people everywhere, and although I'd say, based on what I heard from previous pilgrimages, we didn't have to wait as long, and there's less people here than what you would see in generally, but nevertheless, this was kind of a crazy experience. I said, are we standing in line to get on a ride at Disney World? Because, there's noise and commotion, and then people are throwing friendly elbows at each other and accusing each other of cutting in line, and you just wouldn't believe that this would go on at a holy place like this. But such is life, right, with the human race. You have to embrace this and be patient and humble and wait your turn. And that's just, gotta love everyone, right? But this is kind of this just shows really what it was like, and thought it was kind of funny to present this. All right, I start out this slide with got this picture from the internet. You can see here's what the Church of the Nativity looks like. It's in the shape of a cross. So very cool. An aerial view of this gives you an idea of what this church looked like. And then before this slide gets busy, I put a small picture over here to show you where you had to enter. This is called the Door of Humility. So the purpose of this is to kind of bow down and show your humbleness as you're going into these holy places. These doorways are, I don't know, what are they, 3.5, 4 feet high. So everyone has to bow down and go in them, and it's part of the reason why I guess it takes us a while to get through them, because they're small spaces and you got a lot of people trying to get through these doors. But this is not the first time we had to do that, and it's kind of cool just to bow down as you're going into these places. Inside the church, you can see, reminds you of Christmas, right? Like this bright red ball from these oil lamps and chandeliers that you see inside the church. Definitely makes you feel like you're at a Christmas location. And this is a view kind of zoomed out. You can see multiple oil lamps, and the altar is over here, and I'll give you a zoomed in view of the crucifix. There'll be more, I guess, some more to talk about this skull right here, the blood coming from Jesus going through the rocks here into the skull. Hang on to that thought. That's going to be coming up a few slides from now. I'll talk about more about that. And here's some of the paintings that were, or murals on the pillars. A lot of these things, they're discovered after a period of time as people are cleaning things up, because they, after hundreds or 1,000 or so years of oil lamps burning, soot and black soot just covers a lot of these things. So you can tell that these were probably covered at one time. Here is the original floor. So this is a cutout. I cropped this picture, but there's kind of this is gated off, and you can peek down below the floor we were standing on to see the original mosaics from the original floor of the Church of the Nativity. So you're seeing seeing the original floor there was really cool to kind of peek through there and see. Couple other pictures here, like I said. So this was recently discovered just I didn't it was within like what 7-8 years ago, maybe less than that. There's angels up here. This is mosaics up here that were uncovered up on the walls of the Church Nativity. So it was all just kind of cool that, and I'll point this out in future slides, that archaeologists, right, they're always discovering new things, right? Things are being uncovered, and so this was something cool to see, because not many people, within the past few years, last pilgrimages they might have been on, they didn't see this, and so we got to see this with fresh eyes. Okay, here I go again. I don't know why I keep showing my face. I haven't even combed my hair, but there's just some videos I thought it's worthwhile showing everyone. So wrapping up Church of the Nativity, birthplace of Christ. So you can see we celebrated Mass here. So it was cool because it was during Lent, and so we couldn't say the A word, that's Alleluia, because we had to wait for Easter, but we actually could, because we whatever place we were in, we celebrated that Mass. So just like at the Cenacle Room and Last Supper, and we celebrated Pentecost Masses there as well. So it was cool to kind of be in the moment and participate in the theme, and that represented where we were. So we sang Christmas carols, and wished everyone a Merry Christmas while we were there. We received a gift, so it was really cool to do that here at the place where Jesus was born. This is where God, a frail newborn, presented himself to us, where he revealed his face. It's where the shepherds recognized the Messiah as an infant in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. It's where the Magi adored, where they offered the gold of royalty, the incense of divinity, and the myrrh of the passion. Let me go to the next couple of pictures. So this is rare artwork. Generally you see Mary in artwork, with a pretty, kind of serious face, right? But she's smiling, right? So it was cool to see something unique here. This is right before we're gonna go see the actual place of the spot where Jesus was born. But she's smiling, of course, because her son, the baby Jesus, is born, and so she's happy and joyful. And then here is the actual spot. So remember, this is some places are here or near, but the spot is marked where you could actually kneel down, and we took our rosaries and our crosses and whatever our personal items and everything that we brought with us, some gifts that we had too as well to bring back to everyone, and placed them here and touched them to all these spots. So we definitely touched everything that we had with us, touched to the actual spot where Jesus was born. So this is just it's not a whole there. I'll actually talk about the spot of the crucifixion. It was a little bit different than some of these spots, but it was just really cool to actually touch these with your hand, right, where Jesus was born. Here is us. So right, kind of like across from where the spot where he was born, there is this spot here, which commemorates the place where the manger was. So we had a chance to really pray just for a few seconds, and I couldn't help, as I was entering this place, I wrote my, I had different, sometimes I didn't know, my brain was trying to keep up with what I was seeing, but for this place, like my heart was beating fast, like I was getting like tingly inside, and it was like the anticipation of this was like really cool, and something that, unique experience that you really can't experience anywhere else, right? Just because what is, what you're about to, where you're about to be. And so let me play a quick video that shows you that you'll hear some maybe Christmas carols, but this gives you an idea of like how quickly, how much time we had at these places. That's it. That's about how long you had to, well, that's a little exaggeration. We had a little bit more time than that, but that was Lee leaning down to touch the spot where Jesus was born, and you can hear us singing Christmas carols. Okay, hopefully you guys haven't fallen asleep yet or not too bored, but this keeps getting more exciting though as we keep going along this journey. So right next to the Church of the Nativity, hey, guess what? It's still day 3, right? We've seen a lot so far. Is St. Jerome's cave. St. Jerome is from the 5th century, and his quote is, "Ignorance of Scripture is ignorance of Christ." He spent many years living in Bethlehem, studying and translating the Hebrew and Greek scriptures into Latin, which is the common language of his day. there's no copy machine, so you can imagine the tedious task of, over and over again, making copies of scriptures by hand. Sure, he had writer's cramp. So this cave is right next to the Church Nativity, like I said. But what a place to spend your time, right? I mean, you might not have that fun of a job translating the Bible, but he has this place in history, and he could, you know, walk right over to the Church of the Nativity every single day if he wanted to. He's kind of famous for having a skull, an hourglass, and a cross on his desk to remind him of his human mortality and the hope of salvation. So maybe I'll try to do that myself. I just don't know where I can find a skull, an actual human skull. But let's keep moving on here. That's St. Jerome. So here's a stairway. So this is kind of cool. So down these caves, it could get really dark. You could turn the lights off and not see anything. But it would have been fun. I thought it'd been fun to, like, if they weren't blocked off, to kind of go exploring and kind of see some of these places that, most pilgrims don't get to see or touch, just to get a more authentic feel for the place. But really cool. There's an altar here and another altar here. Just many cool things to kind of see in St. Jerome's Cave. Okay, so wrapping up day 3. Actually, I think day 3 I thought it seemed like a lot of the time, but I think day 6 is even more full than this one. At this point, Lee got a great picture here of me walking in between the pillars with my back turned her. Very great photo. We said, we both looked at each other and was like, you know what, we could go home perfectly satisfied with this pilgrimage at this point. But yet there was just so much more left to see and experience, right? It felt like just this one day was great, right? It's like, wow, that was money well spent. That was totally worth it, right? The trip over here. But little did we know there's just so much more yet to see. So here's a great picture of us. Look at my hair's messy in this picture, just like it is when I do this live video for you to show these videos. And there we are. We still look pretty young, I think. And there's Mike Scherzlik and his daughter Teresa, which do the Rosary podcast that we pray along with them every day. Highly recommend it for the School of Faith. Mike was kind of our main tour guide, and that's really the main reason why we went on this pilgrimage, is because we want to make sure we caught a Mike Scherzlik led School of Faith pilgrimage before everyone gets too old or retires or does something else. But he's still young. He's gonna be doing this for many years. But they're an awesome. I mean, that I could have conversations with them every day. It's just very interesting. Good conversation, right? As we were driving away from the Church of Nativity, we saw a familiar sight. It looks like, a little different colors than our kids, but Catholic school kids getting out. So everyone's in uniform. That looks familiar. Kind of a familiar scene to see. And then there we are having our first meal at a restaurant. So hummus is your one of your main staples over there. So plenty of starches and potatoes and lots of meats, which I fit in pretty well with that. So I did okay for food. Usually that's kind of a area I'm concerned about. It's like, where am I going to find my meat and potatoes? And because I just don't like vegetables, and picky eater for those that know me. That's no surprise. Okay, so day 4. So things are going to get interesting, and you might learn a lot like I did. The Temple Mount is where we visited, what we visited first on day 4, the Temple Mount, or Dome of the Rock. Very iconic view, right? This is what you generally might see, so this might be familiar to many people, seeing the dome here. Here's a couple pictures of Lee and I with the Dome of the Rock in the background. I'm wearing my sporting my Northern Iowa gear. I'm sure it's just kind of funny, right, to see Northern Iowa gear in the Holy Land. But hey, we're everywhere. All right, so here, so the observations and things that I've learned, right? So there's no apparent secular society here, right? You got the old city is split up into quarters, right? So you have Jews, Muslims, and Christians all living in the old city together. It's all split up, right? So Dome of the Rock is located here, right? So that's C for Muslim area. You have the Muslim quarter there, then you have the Christian quarter here, the Armenian quarter, which is Christian as well, and then you have the Jewish quarter. So isn't it funny how everyone is all living together, right, in the same area. So I just can't help but think, is this a coincidence that we're all here together? Like, does not everyone else kind of see this as, more than a coincidence that God really placed us all together to, hopefully live in peace and get along, and um, which is, it's just very ironic, right? Because any source of religious conflict that happens anywhere over the world stems from this location, right? So, there's always going to be tension in this area because of, these three main religions, all right here. But I guess I saw it as, you know, I just saw it as a great opportunity, right? And you know, as God just intentionally did this, right? Versus having us kind of be separate and never have an opportunity to get together. So more to come here. Let me go to the next slide. Okay, so I had to, a lot of most of my slides, if you're like a little kid like me, you like more pictures, less words. But this slide, I wanted to kind of pass along the quick history lesson about Judaism and Islam. For those that don't want to, that are like me and don't have the time to take classes and read a bunch of books. Mike, our tour guy, gave a great synopsis of this, a quick history lesson, right? And then I condensed it into like a dozen bullet points as well. So I'm gonna give you, the cliff notes to the cliff notes and see if you can learn something like I did. All right. So in the 200s AD, there was a bishop near Syria that came up with this teaching that Jesus was not equal to the Father. God created the Son and the Holy Spirit. God is not three persons within the Holy Trinity. This was a heresy that was concocted by this bishop, and he had a student that began to teach this. And he was such an eloquent teacher that it just spread all over this region. The church bishops then called the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD to state the Son is God from God, light from light, true God from true God, begotten, not made, one in being of the same substance as the Father. This correction didn't make it to the fringes of the empire, however, so this heresy remained all over the Middle East. And if you recognize, for those in that are Catholic, this is the Nicene Creed, right? So we say this, not, just like everything has meaning, right? We, as a kid, you grow up and you don't think, you're just going through the motions because your parents are bringing you to church. But the Nicene Creed had an absolute major purpose, right? It was to correct this heresy that God is not three persons within the Holy Trinity, right? So this is a major, major deal, and this has everything to do with Islam. So, given all that, in the 600s AD, a man named Muhammad had visions that were not from God and thought he was going crazy. So Muhammad went to his wife's uncle, who was a heretical monk, who attempted to explain to him the meaning of these visions. So almost everything in Islam's Quran, God is one, God has no son, God is not three, is taken from the heretical prayer books derived from Muhammad's visions. Islam is then essentially a Christian heresy, which kind of blew my mind because I just assumed that Islam was just, this independent religion that had nothing to do with Christianity, but there's ties, right? There's ties everywhere, Judaism as well. Around this Dome of the Rock, this Temple Mount area, so first of all, right, this was actually constructed by a Christian architect, and that's why it's in the octagon shape, because that's where traditional churches were built in the octagon shape. So unbeknownst to them, maybe, that this was going to be built in a Christian church shape. However, but in this writing, if you translate the writing that goes all the way around, that's exactly what it says, that God is one, God has no son, God is not three. So kind of a proclamation, right, that that's contrary to your Christianity. This is the third most holy site for Islam. You got Damascus and Mecca, but there's, because of the regions, right, this site, there had to be another site for those to make a pilgrimage, and so a story was made up that Muhammad visited here, so this could be a third site for Muslims to come. So in Islamic tradition, Muhammad was transported by a white winged horse and led fellow prophets Abraham, Moses, and Jesus in prayer. So interesting, right? Just something that I just didn't understand, what the beliefs of Muslims were, but now I get got a knowledge of that, and I'm passing along. All right, so let's move backwards, right, to 1850 BC. God told Abraham to take his son Isaac to offer him as a burnt sacrifice. Abraham was about to sacrifice Isaac, but an angel stopped him and told him to take the ram that was caught in the bushes and sacrifice it. The location of that sacrifice is said to happen on a rock inside this temple. And in the past, Christians and the public could see that actual rock, but now it's closed off because I believe some idiot tried to bring a bomb into the place, and now security has prevented anyone besides Muslims go in there. But you can see it on the internet if you want to go see another picture of a rock. But that rock actually is famous and has a lot of meaning because that's where it's believed where Abraham brought Isaac to sacrifice him. The most holy site for Jews was the place of the Holy Temple. The only place where Jews can offer sacrifice to God by sacrifice, can offer worship to God by sacrifice, and sacrifice is essential for worship, was on this Temple Mount. But they lost it to the Muslims during the Six-Day War in 1948. The Jews took everything back except for mysterious circumstances. They could not take back these 30 acres, which had this location, which is the location where they would want to offer sacrifice to God. This would be like Catholics losing the Mass, right? This would be a deal breaker. It would there would be nothing, no purpose, right? So I will continue that on slide 20. Just want to get you get some headway here onto Judaism as well. So let me pause here and go to the next slide first. So before I get to finishing that story, I want to show one picture. This is just a great photo, I thought, that kind of shows the Mount of Olives in the background here. The lower portion of the wall is the retaining wall of the original temple, right? I'm getting ready to finish the story of Judaism, but so we're walking on our way to the western wall, or what you would call the Wailing Wall. But this is, Jerusalem's been destroyed many times, right? Was it 7 times, I think? And so things, the walls have been expanded and been rebuilt, and then so what you see is not original. However, this retaining wall, this part is original, so you actually do get to see that part, and say, wow, that's the actual wall that was there at the time of Jesus. Okay, the western retaining wall. We made it here, so I have some pictures from where we were there the night before and daytime pictures. So this kind of shows a couple of different angles here of the western wall and the Jews offering worship. And let me continue the whole story. So I'm pulled in another picture from another location we went to, right? This actually looks real, right? But this is a outdoor model of what the Jewish temple, which was the second one that was destroyed in 70 AD, right? This was where this is what the temple would have looked like in Jesus' time, right? So when this was destroyed, essentially the whole Jewish faith at that point came to an end, right? When the second one was destroyed. So really, I mean, they had to recreate a new religion that looks almost nothing like the original. The whole Jewish faith was based on offering sacrifice, like I mentioned a couple slides before, right, at the temple. But today, all they really have is just some of the land. So this is, part of the reason why this is called the Wailing Wall, is because they are wailing for their former way of life, right, to get the sacrifice on the temple. But some have tried to build a third temple because that's what they need to offer sacrifice. But it failed in its mysterious circumstances. There's been people that have been hired to build the temple, and I think some of them were have died in mysterious ways, and consumed by fire, and these kind of crazy stories. And so everyone, anytime no one tries that anymore, right? Everyone says, yeah, we're done. We're not doing this anymore, because either people die or crazy things happen, because God apparently is not allowing a third temple to be built. But we know that a reason for that is the third temple of God is not going to be built as a building. The temple of God is now the body of Jesus. God's original plan was that he would live in you. So the only sacrifice that is done now is that of Jesus in the Mass. So now you can be the temple of God by receiving the Eucharist. So taking all this in, as we were sitting in these places and taking all this in, it made me realize that really it kind of just comes down to a misunderstanding, right, that prevents these 3 major religions from becoming one, right? I guess I see it as it's really not that big of a gap as one may think. You just got to get people to talk and, read history and understand history but that's another conversation for another day. So let me continue to show the rest of the pictures here. So a couple of pictures of some Jewish men coming in here, and then this was a video of a picture of some of them praying. I'm not gonna bother showing the video of that one this time. So I'll spare you that. But um, it's actually playing on my end. And then here is Lee praying in front of the in front of the Western Wall. We didn't. It was an opportunity for us to pray here, but I mean, as Christians, right, this wall it technically means nothing to us, right? It's no different than any other location. Has no real significance other than it's in Jerusalem, and it was an opportunity to pray. But so Lee wanted to go up there and pray, perfectly fine. And then here's a view at nighttime. There's a picture of us with the Temple Mount in the background. There's a view kind of late at night and nobody around. All right, so once you know it, I'm by myself here. We went to the upper room or the cenacle, right? This is the Last Supper room, and we had mass here. But Lee got sick, and I was at least grateful she only missed, just a day, half a day or whatever. So I was actually on my own, and we had to come back. So I actually have pictures here of us two in this location, because the first time I was by myself. This is the place of the upper room, right? Jerusalem was destroyed many times. So this place is actually, there's the least amount to see. Once I get to those pictures, I guess I'll talk more about that. But the Last Supper begins here, right? This is where Jesus institutes the Eucharist. It's where Jesus washes the disciples' feet. It's where he says, "Love one another as I have loved you." This was a cool statue here of the Last Supper, and you can see, you never see, you have the 12 apostles next to Jesus, but you never see Mary, right? But then there's a statue of Mary right here, looking on, because you wonder, like, well, where else would she be? I'm sure she's not, watching Netflix or something at home. So she had to be nearby, so that was kind of cool to show her that she is nearby. Here is us celebrating the Mass. So this is a Pentecost Mass that we got to celebrate here in the actual spot where it occurred. And there's Lee when she was healthy, and we made a second trip to the upper room. And like I said before, this area, this room, none of what you see here, right? This is kind of rebuilt in the 1800s, right? This area was destroyed many times, and so unlike other areas, you could either see or touch some things that were original, or at least older than this, but this area, it was just the space, right? You were just in the same space, but walls and anything that you could see or touch wasn't, none of it was from the original time. But the dimensions of this area would have fit 120 people here, so it was, it's been confirmed that this is the spot where the whole descent of the Holy Spirit happened, where because there was 120 mentioned in the Bible that were present at Pentecost. So a cool little tree statue here, and then this is a view with everyone in it. You're going to see us kind of crowding, our big group crowding all these tiny spaces, but we were about 90 people, so not quite the 120. There's still room to spare. Okay, so we got on the bus and hopped over to the Tomb of Mary, which is the place of the Assumption, where we assumed Mary was taken up to heaven, body and soul. Once again, going down into like a cave, and lots of black soot from all the oil lamps. Here is a painting with Jesus and the apostles all around Mary as she died. The disciples treat her body with great reverence and place it in the tomb, and they each give her a last kiss and seal the tomb with a stone, as that was the custom back then. And then there they stood and they stay in prayer. After 3 days, however, the Apostle Thomas arrives, and apparently Thomas is a lot like me, where he's always late. He was late to the resurrection when Jesus appeared. He was late to when Mary died. However, that actually helped us figure out that she was assumed, because he begs the apostles to reopen the tomb so that he can give the last kiss to Mary, because everyone got to give a last kiss to Mary, the Mother of God, and he wanted to do that as well. But when they open the tomb is empty. So to console him, Mary appears to Thomas and gives him her cloak, her mantle. So miraculously, obviously, right? Because she had already died and assumed into heaven, and so this is kind of how it was known that she, there's no evidence of her body anywhere, so they assumed that her body went directly into heaven. And her cloak, her mantle, right? I've actually seen pieces of that as relics on a relics tour. Was left here on Earth, and so pretty cool that that happened. So there you go. Good things happen to people who are late, right? So don't ever get mad at me if I'm ever late to one of your events because something good is about to happen. Okay, enough of the comedic relief. Another painting here as we're getting closer to the tomb, that Jesus and the apostles around her. Here is a cool view. I think there's some of these pictures that are really good that came from Chris, that's from the School of Faith, that caught some of these pictures, that we didn't catch with the candles. Although Lee said she did actually take, she might not have taken this picture, but she took one just like this. Maybe she took this one. We'll give her credit for it. But it's kind of cool. You can see just the ancient, right, um, ancient view view here with all the oil lamps hanging from the ceiling. And then there's another picture of Mary on the side. Okay, we're getting closer to the spot. Here we go. Here's another door of humility. You duck, everyone's waiting in line to go and see where the place where she was laid. You can see my bald spot right there coming through. And let's go to the next set of bullet points. So what's funny, I talked about Islam and Judaism, but this place is actually considered holy to Muslims because they believe Muhammad saw light over the tomb of his sister Mary during his night journey to Jerusalem. I talked a little bit about that night journey. So there's a connection there, right? So that if you study all this, you can kind of see it's almost like, a chess board, right? Even though God allows us to, God doesn't move us as pawns on a chessboard. We get to move freely, but I swear, like, the whole world, you can just see the pieces in place, right, for things to come together. So the fact that there's a connection here with Muslims, have a respect and love for Mary makes you go, I wonder there's an opportunity in the future for a connection there. Here is a view from, I guess as we're exiting the tomb. So the tomb of Mary is right here. And here is a close-up picture as you're kind of looking at it from the side. So there's mysterious like holes here. Don't really know, the type of rock or whatever, but it's kind of, it's a shape of like where a body would have laid here, right? So it's interesting on how that formed or whatever, but just kind of a unique rock. So you can kind of see here um, the groove in here that where Mary's body was placed, and people would put slide notes in there, prayers and whatnot, asking for heavenly help. So after going by the place where Mary laid and died and assumed into heaven, we got a chance to go in front of this icon here and just kind of reconsecrate yourself to Mary and kind of give her ask her for her heavenly hope to bring our prayers to Jesus. And this was a very, I guess, touching spot for me. You can see us, in kind of deep prayer and reflection here. I guess I felt the presence of both Jesus and Mary, kind of one on each side of me at this spot, and it was quite touching. Outside the Nativity, I guess this was like maybe the second most, I guess, spot where I felt touched. So here is a picture of the icon that we were kneeling. So you never see, or yeah, I guess you do sometimes see Mary by herself, but pictures of you can never get to. Nothing ever stops with Mary, right? She magnifies the Lord. So you can see she's holding the baby Jesus. All attention goes to Jesus anytime we are in front of the Blessed Mother. And here is just kind of like some of the artwork around the same area. Okay, so guess what? So we're gonna start going through like the Passion and taking you back to starting with Holy Thursday. Let's start with Gethsemane. Everyone's familiar with Gethsemane, right? Here you can see the description of Gethsemane there. The Church of All Nations is next door, and Here is the cave. So we actually said the rosary down here in this cave. This is the cave where Jesus brought 8 of his apostles to pray while they wait. So Judas is gone at this point, right? He's on his way to bring the soldiers to Jesus, while Peter, James, and John accompany Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Your other 8 apostles are here in prayer. Here is behind the altar, there's Jesus, and you have 8 of his apostles there praying, right? And guess what? What happens to these apostles? They fall asleep. Under the altar are 2 statues of the apostles sleeping after not being able to stay awake for only 1 hour to pray with Jesus. This is not how we want to be remembered, right? Lee has given us a great example how she does many times trying to pray the rosary, and she falls asleep. I almost do as well. I don't know. Okay, I'm guilty of it as well. That's not how we want to be remembered, right? But it's so hard sometimes to stay awake. We want to stay awake with Jesus and pray, right? Uh, and but this is sometimes what reality is in our human nature. We fall asleep.
Well, hello everyone. This is Lee. So, I know you've been listening to Jesse for the last hour or so he had to take a potty break. Thought I would give him a break, so I'm filling in for a slide or two. Anyway, the Garden of Gethsemane. Wow, just absolutely wow. There are just no words for this place. This had to be one of my favorite places from the Holy Land. So our group was given this night tour for about an hour or so. And when we entered the entrance to this place, we were kind of a chatty group of 90 and we were kind of loud. And I remember I was in the front somehow. That never happens, but at this place and at this time, I was in the front of the group. And as I entered it, immediately this spirit force just kind of hit me. And somehow silence fell over our entire group, and we just felt the sacredness of this place and how special it was that we were on holy ground. I remember that night vividly, and my heart like literally just stopped beating and just looking around. I mean, the moon was out and the tree was just glowing, and my eyes was just taking it all in, and I was just like, oh my gosh, how am I here? This is literally the place that Jesus was praying before his passion. If only these olive trees can talk, since, they're over 2,000 years old, and we're probably there and saw the entire scene of what went down and how Judas betrayed Jesus with a kiss and how the Roman soldiers came and took Jesus away. It really made me reflect on how that just story came to life. And the whole night was just so magical. As if that wasn't special enough, then our tour guide came up to us and said, "Hey everyone, just so you know, this is a special night and this doesn't always happen, but they just prune the olive trees and anyone is welcome to pick a branch or two and take some with them, since these branches and the leaves were pruned." So hopefully those who receive these holy olive leaves and twigs would know how special they are. Anyway, I'm so blessed, so blessed, and I hope that someday you too will be able to lay eyes on these magnificent olive trees that were there at the same time Jesus was.
Okay, so the rock of agony. This is the actual rock where Jesus in his agony, sweat, tears of blood. Father, if you are willing, take this cup away from me. Still not my will, but yours be done. This is from Luke 22:44. So here is the actual rock of agony, and you'll see this was the cover photo I used for this presentation, just because it was unique and cool. You can see there's a view of the little cutout that I did of Jesus on the rock of agony, and this is the actual rock where he sweat tears of blood. And then there is Lee and I actually had some time. This is where it was nighttime and we had at least an hour, right, of prayer. So I got to rest, kneel over and pray on the rock and try to contemplate that Jesus laid on this rock and reading scripture and going through this every year during Holy Week. Just it's really hard to comprehend that you're touching the same rock that he was laying on. So another mind-blowing opportunity, and I'm glad we had more time to pray about it and do adoration. We had actually had adoration at the same time. So a beautiful moment, a sad place, but yet an opportunity for us to kind of tag along with Jesus and kind of go along with him on this journey. There's a side view of us putting our hands and our cheeks on this cold rock and praying in this moment, trying to truly understand what he went through and what he did for us. A few more pictures here. There's my I guess money shot for the cover photo of this presentation. You can kind of see it's like a little groove here. Right here in the rocks, you wonder, like, did he kind of lay here or was he on his knees? Trying to imagine what this was like for him 2,000 years ago. So just want to show a few more pictures here of this moment. And there is our backpacks, right? So all the gifts, if you see us in person, we might have a rosary or some special gifts for you. And we brought those gifts, some of them we held in our hands, others we put in the backpack and touched them to all these sites. So we're going to tell you that this site touched everything in the Holy Land, and it's if you have a problem that was in a backpack and not touching the actual rock of the agony or the nativity spot, well, here or near, I tell you, right, close enough, except the gift it was there. It was at that spot, and it's special. Okay, let's move along to the chain of events that's happening. Judas receives his 30 pieces of silver. He leads the band of soldiers to the Garden of Gethsemane. And Judas betrays Jesus with a kiss. So this is a mural here that shows Judas kissing Jesus, and the apostles are kind of in shock now. What's happening? Got another picture here of the olive tree and the star. Star at night. Who are you looking for? Jesus says, and the soldiers say, Jesus of Nazareth. And Jesus responds, I am. And after he pronounced the divine name, I am, they're all knocked to the ground. And this is in scripture, and I never kind of glossed over this, right? When they're all knocked to the ground after he pronounced his divine name, I am. And here's a mural portraying that the Roman soldiers all fall on the ground. So it makes you wonder, like, after the power of God knocked you to the ground, why did you continue to go through this of arresting this man when something shouldn't that have kind of made you rethink that this is maybe not such a good idea? But guess what, human nature, the conflict within us, right? We have to either obey orders that were given to us, even if it goes against God, and that's kind of why it continued to happen. Here is another, so they actually have a gate around this really old olive tree. Just want to show you one more picture of the Garden of Gethsemane before we move to the next stage, or next stage in this event sequence. Oh, there's one more picture. There's another picture of the olive tree. Okay, coming from the Garden of Gethsemane, I wanted to, show a video here in a minute just to give you a video of what this next stage that we enter right after Jesus is chained up. As you can see here, here's a depiction of Jesus being chained and dragged to Caiaphas's house. So this is the actual original steps to Caiaphas' house. So we didn't get a chance to walk on these steps, but it was cool to see something original, right? Just imagine the scene of Jesus being carried in chains on these steps, and then Peter was coming this way as well, right? Because this is Saint Peter Gallicantu, which means the cock's crow. So you can see the there's the smaller picture here of the statue, and there's Peter, and then there's people in the crowd accusing him of being one of Jesus' followers, right? And this one says, "Your accent gives you away," right? Because he had a Galilean accent, so it was when he would speak, they could tell that he was a follower of Jesus, and they asked him, and he denies Jesus, of course. Saint Peter Gallicantu, right? Like I said, that means the cock's crow. It's built over the site of Caiaphas' house. Before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times, says Jesus. There is a picture of the rooster on top, so you know where you are at. So this is actually the place, before I show the video, Judas responded the wrong way, right? So he fell into despair and hung himself here, right? This is called the Potter's Field, or the Field of Blood. So somewhere in this area is where Judas hung himself. So that's kind of a here or near type of place, right? Where we don't know exactly where, but it was in this region. So let me throw this clip right here to give you an idea of like what it was like for Peter. So the quality didn't seem to be as good there, but I just want to give you, kind of put you in the moment of, what was that like for Peter to, this is the beginning of the most down moment for him, right? Judas has a moment like this as well, right? He responds in despair and hangs himself. But what does Peter do after this, right? After locking eyes with Jesus and seeing the eyes of mercy of Jesus on him and feeling the guilt, Jesus responds a different way, which is the right. He responds the right way, which is he goes to prayer and he examines his conscience, right? The best thing that ever happened to Jesus was that he was sad. His sad emotion is what moves him back to Jesus. So as we're following along the path of Jesus and Peter and putting ourselves in their positions, we have an idea of the right way of reacting when we do screw up, right? Denying Jesus. So this is a nice little visual here that shows Peter in great thought going to prayer and reflecting on his conscience on what he did wrong. Okay, so we're still at Caiaphas' house. So in Caiaphas' house was the prison, the cistern where Jesus was kept overnight. All right, so this is Holy Thursday night. Here's a depiction of Caiaphas and then Jesus in chains, statue of Jesus in chains. And here is it's kind of a modern church above it. And then you can kind of see these little areas here. This is where you can kind of look into the actual prison and what archaeologists found not that long ago. Hang on one second before I'll go into that. Here's a mural showing Jesus lowered in with chains, and where he was lowered was through this hole. So these underground caves under Caiaphas' house, they were discovered in only 1889, so that's very recent, right, in the grand scheme of things. So what we got to see, this is original rock. This is everything as it was. Jesus was held here by Caiaphas. Peter and John were also brought here and scourged for preaching the name of Jesus in the temple area after the resurrection. So many things happened here. But I guess the cool thing is that you could actually touch, the same rock where they were. Psalm 88, you have plunged me into the bottom of the pit. Upon me your wrath lies heavy. I'm in prison and cannot escape. O Lord, I call upon you. All right, this is the psalm we think of when Jesus was in the pit. And here we are. We had to separate ourselves in a couple of groups to get down here, but we all got to go down here and reflect and touch the walls and the floor and try our best to imagine being here with Jesus in this moment, right? Because this is the exact spot he was at. One of the coolest places probably in the Holy Land because of the authenticity of it all, and being able to see and touch the original structures. Here's a little kind of off on the side around the house of Caiaphas' house in the caves. There's a little picture of us. There's the floor, right, where Jesus may have stood or sat down as he was in chains that night. Here we are, so we're kind of like, we're not really smiling. I guess we felt kind of like sad, right? We're in the prison of Jesus, the sacred pit where he was kept. A touching moment. So I just looked up in these holes, right, as that you saw that picture, the mosaic of Jesus being lowered through this hole in chains, and I try to imagine him, going through this exact same hole that he was lowered and through this hole into this pit. So a surreal moment, right, to understand where you are, but we were there. You could say you were there, and you try to imagine what it was like and try to journey along with Jesus through this difficult time. Here is a overlook at St. Peter Gallen. Now we're smiling again. You can see the Dome of the Rock right here and the view of Jerusalem buildings. This was actually this was like before we actually got there, but great picture of us having a good time being pilgrimage. I had my Northern Iowa gear on before. Now we got Detroit Lions, Kansas City Royals, winners of just amazing sports winners that I'm wearing in these Holy Land places, trying to show my gear. We're gonna win the Super Bowl this year, by the way. All right, other sites that we saw on the way was Hell's Valley. This is called Hell's Valley. So here's a few pictures from the bus. Hell's Valley was due to it's called the Hell's Valley because of the firstborn human sacrifices that happened here, right? So pagan sacrifices in this area. This used to be, filled with smoke and, horrible smell because of human sacrifices that were done here. Obviously, that's why we call it Hell's Valley. Oskar Schindler, if you've ever seen Schindler's List, highly recommend it. It's one of probably the top greatest 100 movies of all time. Oskar Schindler is buried here. Here is another view of the Mount of Olives in the background. A couple more cool just pictures that we caught on our way to, it's actually on our way, to or from St. Peter Gallicantu. Another nice little picture here, landscape picture. All right, day 6, time to go shopping, right? Everyone, my wife had a reputation for wheeling and dealing and shopping everywhere. People got a kick out of that. They'll never forget her because of that aspect, I'm sure, amongst many other personality traits she has. But this was a place where we got most of our stuff. I got this little black and white headgear here and put it on my head. If you see me do this presentation live, I'll even wear that for you for a moment to show you, how authentic I look, right, as a Palestinian Christian. So we got a lot of cool stuff here. I had to show through a picture here that as we're going through the Muslim quarter, they actually had all this. This is all candy lined up, just kind of exposed outside, just to grab, take a bag and just get a whole bunch of candy. We didn't really buy any. We're just kind of passing through, but some of the things you see on the marketplace, right? Much food for sale. Surprisingly, there's a lot of like fine jewelry. It's not just like cheap, crappy touristy stuff. There's like nice stuff there. So you really, had an opportunity to get some nice things and, this cool just to bring some stuff back from the Holy Land period, but there was like really neat things. And speaking of just even more cool things, this is all hand carved pieces, made out of single pieces of olive wood. This place was like the main shopping destination we went to, and like they had everything, anything you could want, and it supported the Palestinian Christians, which is great. But in the back room there was a large nativity scene that was for $50,000, so we bought 2 of them. No, just kidding. We only bought 1. No, we didn't buy any. I'm not. Maybe someday. It would be really cool to, if you had a place to put that and you had the money, that would be something cool to buy, right? Here's another view. I try to capture this all in like one picture, but this olive wood carvings, just it's beautiful, right? You name it, there was just carvings of everything. Very talented artist, and make some great gifts for people with some cha-ching. Okay, let's move along onto our sequence of events, right? Ecce homo is what means behold the man. That's what Pontius Pilate said, right, when they brought Jesus and he presented Jesus to the crowd. Behold the man. To show where we were. So this is we were in the courtyard area, right? So archaeologists have identified this as the area where this took place. So there is Jesus after he's being scourged, a little painting of him. Like I said, it was a courtyard where he was being judged by Pilate. It's also where the way of the cross begins, right? Where he picks up his cross. It begins the Praetorian. Romans cut grooves into the stones in order to ease wheeled travel. So that's how this gives you an indication that this is the spot where that happened, because you can see the grooves in these very old stones that Romans cut out for that. And this was encased. I zoomed in here. It's a little like circle and lines here where I think they use like marbles and pebbles of rock to a little game that the Romans that they played that was carved into the stone. And then just a couple other pictures around the surrounding area of where this courtyard was. We prayed the rosary, one of the rosary meditations here, and like I said, right, this is where the way of the cross begins. Jesus takes up his cross, and that'll be the next slide, is the way of the cross. Okay, the Via Dolorosa, which also means way of the cross, is where what we did next. This is day 6. Here is kind of so by the way, it's 5 a.m. was when we started this, so we're super tired. This is kind of the beginning of like the first station, right? And then second station is Jesus picks up his cross, and third station is Jesus falls a first time. Fourth station, Jesus meets his mother. So these are all right. Jerusalem was destroyed many times, right? So there was not a lot of like indications of these places, right? Not huge like churches, right? Although there's some places that we could have went into, but it was I think closed at this time. But the pathways are still the same, right? As when you destroy something, generally the best the pathways, the shortest distance between 2 points, right, is a straight line. So pathways are generally the same. So we might not walk on the exact same stones, although we actually did. There's a few stones that were original from King Herod's temple's time, but a lot of this was kind of rebuilt. But there was signs that showed where these spots were, right? Where even after it's been rebuilt, you had an idea of you were at the same spot of where these places were. Station 5, so this was cool, right? Simon Cyrene helps Jesus carry the cross, and right when we turned the corner, it started to go uphill, right? So now you're walking up the hill of Calvary, and so gave you gave you a great visual and experience that, oh, okay, so Simon stepped in to help Jesus carry the cross right when the ascent really started up to Calvary. Station 6 is Veronica wipes Jesus' face with her veil. Station 7, Jesus falls a second time. And then some of these stations were not as easy to kind of like see. So 8 and 9, I didn't really have pictures for those. Kind of went to station 10 next, where Jesus is stripped of his garments. So these steps, it marks the location where he was stripped of his garments. And then you can see us, look, there's a picture of the crowd. It's still dark. 5 a.m. is way early for me, but I'm not going to miss this, right? I'm not going to be sleeping in and missing this. And then I said some of the steps are original, most of them are not original, but these are original stones from King Herod's temple, right, at the time of Jesus. So Jesus and his followers and everyone from that time may have walked exactly on one of these stones. So how cool is that? Does that blow your mind or what? You could walk in the same exact footsteps. Okay, so we arrive at Calvary. Up the steps to the top of Calvary, inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre we go. So these are the steps going up to that spot. So first I'm going to show you kind of things off to the side. So off to the right of the site of the crucifixion is just lots of like wall art and depictions of what happened here. So this depicts, this was the area where Jesus was nailed to the cross on this spot. So there's an altar here, and there was mass going on quite frequently right here. Everyone kind of takes turns and I guess makes reservations to celebrate mass here with their group of pilgrims. But yeah, this is where the actual spot where he was nailed to the cross is right off to the right. And then you can see the oil lamps and lots of art everywhere. There's a mosaic of Isaac getting ready to sacrifice. I'm sorry, Abraham getting ready to sacrifice Isaac, and the angel says, "Do not lay a hand on that boy." And then a couple of other depictions of art. So there's the holy women at the foot of the cross, and then just some other more like oil lamps and chandelier type things. And so right next to the right as well this is the bust where Jesus is taken down from the cross and placed in Mary's arms. So they put this this bust here to kind of commemorate that, and then the sword pierced in her heart, right? It kind of, we talk about Mary's heart being pierced by a sword. The prophets Simeon. This is of it coming true, right? When Jesus dies on the cross, her heart is pierced. Okay, so I showed you what was to the right, and here is kind of what's in the middle. It's interesting. I always wonder, like, who gets to decide, like, how did it get decided which artwork would be in this, like, extremely important place, right? And so it's like you just never know what you're going to see. So this is the artwork you see at the place of the crucifixion. Here Jesus is nailed to the cross. He suffers for 3 hours hanging on the cross before giving up his spirit. He speaks his last words, asks for forgiveness for those crucifying him. So we have Mary on one side and an angel on the other. And there is us. We got a chance to kneel down and pray here. So we actually did this. This is awesome because you could come here early in the morning by yourself and spend more time, right? You just have to wake up early. Did I say wake up early? It's like that's something that I don't do, but I had to sacrifice. Just so I could be here more than once and to spend time time praying at the side of the crucifixion. So a couple of small pictures here. There's Lee praying there and myself. So here is, you can't see it, right? We're kind of covering up the spot, but this is actually the nativity. It was like there's no hole there. It's just kind of like covered, and you just place your holy objects on there and kind of move on. But this had a hole here, right? So you could stick your hand. I stuck my hand pretty deep in this hole, like to like my elbow, and rub my rosary and the crucifix I had in my hand and touch the side of the rocks where the crucifix was. So that's something you just can't do every day. It has a lot of meaning, right? To be able to do that, to get that close, right? This is, not actually touching the foot of Jesus or the face of God, but you can touch. But this is a geographic location that gives you more perspective on where he was, right? And so this is encased here, right? The rocks and the stones around the crucifixion. Mary's on, I couldn't really tell by the picture, I couldn't remember, but right, Mary on one side and the angel on the other. That's Mary, right? Angel on the other side. So Jesus speaks his last words. As for, like I said, as for forgiveness, he gives us his mother and opens heaven to the repentant sinner crucified on the cross next to him. So how can you imagine this scene, right, where Jesus died for each of us to give us eternal life? Another surreal moment. A quick correction. The last slide, I didn't want to re-record it, but I guess I didn't realize. I should have known that that wasn't an angel on the right side of the crucifix. That was John, right? Mary is on the left and John is on the right, because Jesus says, "Behold your mother," and that was the first consecration of Jesus giving his mother to John, the disciples, and then us. So wanted to point that out because I said an angel because I guess John looked like an angel. Here are the rocks of Calvary. So if you see here, let me go to the next one. Yeah, you can kind of get a good view, right? So we knew an earthquake happened right when Jesus died on the cross. And so I think I read that they said, well, it could either be, these rocks could be here because the quarry masters left it here because the rocks are no good because they cracks in them. But as Christians, we know there was an earthquake, and it seems to make sense that these cracks were made in these rocks from that earthquake where the crucifix stood. Here's a little view as you're walking down from top of Calvary and seeing the actual rocks that are on Calvary. So this is, didn't get to touch these, right? I got to touch them from putting my hand down through the hole where the crucifix stood. But it was cool to kind of see, right? These are the rocks that were there. People putting notes, sliding them in there since you couldn't really touch it. There's a little painting there of Jesus on crucified. All right, so here's some tidbit of information. The Christ was crucified on Golgotha, which was outside of the walls of the original temple at the time, right? So I guess there's confusion now, right? Because the temple's temple walls were expanded to make Jerusalem city bigger than they were originally. So nowadays it's inside the walls, but at the time it was not. It was inside the walls. So Golgotha means Mount of the Skull, but not skulls, but the skull, right? So interesting information here. This is below, when you walk down the stairs below the crucifixion, you get to the Chapel of Adam. According to legend, at the crucifixion, Jesus' blood ran down the cross and through the rocks of Golgotha to fill the skull of Adam. Sin came into the world through one man, Adam, and sin was conquered by one man, Jesus. The blood of the new Adam, Jesus, redeems the bones of the first Adam. So there's not only poetic symmetry here, but a physical connection as well. And if you recall, when we were at the Nativity, I showed you a crucifix that was there, had blood running down the crucifix onto a skull, and that skull represents Adam. So here we are in the Chapel of Adam. Where was Adam's body? We don't know. You're talking even more years, even older, right? So this was like the best view you could get, right? A little walled off view display here where you can kind of see, crack in the rocks. This is this place where Adam was, right? And so it's been known that that it's not just a, like I said, poetic symmetry, right? Literally, it's been thought that Jesus' blood ran down through these rocks and redeemed the blood. His blood redeemed Adam. So, is that cool or what? So that's the reasoning, the explanation of why you see a skull below the cross. Okay, still in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. The Armenian Station of the Holy Women. So there's a mosaic here of the Holy Women next to the crucifix. To give you perspective of what we were seeing here, the circular slab commemorates the station from where Mary, the mother of Jesus, is said to have watched the crucifixion along with her companions. So we're kind of puzzled, right? Because it seems so far away because the church of the Holy Sepulchre is built on top of everything, and if you strip everything down, that maybe it seems um, like this would be closer, but it looks like a long ways away, right? The Passion of the Christ and all these other movies depicts Mary being much closer to the crucifixion than what this does, but this is the spot that's marked where she was, and I suppose maybe your perception would be altered if all the stuff was taken away and it would seem closer, uh, but I said Jesus could make himself heard, right? Even you wonder how anyone heard him from this far away, but it is the spot that said where Mary stood. So I had to get on my knees and pray and look up to the spot of where the crucifix was and try to put myself in Mary's shoes to see, I guess, what was that like. And so a very solemn and serious moment of place of prayer. This is just off to the side. There's just some cool picture here of the pillars next to the area. All right, the stone of unction. If you've never heard that word before, neither have I until I got to the Holy Land. So we're inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. I bent down to try to get a cool picture here of the stone. So by local tradition, on this rock, Jesus' body was laid and prepared for burial. So we were told to take many pieces of cloth with us and rub the remnants of the oil that people put on the stone. There's oil that drips from these lamps as well on the stone, but some people put some incense and nice smelling oils and dump them on the rock, and then rub what other cloth you have on this rock, and then you can bring it home and share it with family and friends as a nice meaningful souvenir. So we do have quite a bit of this that we could ask Lee to share. If you see here, we've got some pieces of this of the cloth that we rubbed on this stone where Jesus' body was laid and prepared for burial. Here is a view a little ways away. You can see the mosaic in the background of the scene being depicted of Jesus being prepared for burial. And there is Lee praying and putting the backpack of all of our goodies that we brought home for friends and family so that it touched the stone of unction. Here is a view from top of Calvary looking down at the stone of unction. So it's kind of in, it's just kind of off to the side, right here in the middle of the floor here. These pictures are kind of small here, but it was kind of cool. There's a picture here of through the door. You can see it. And then there's another painting showing everyone preparing Jesus' body for burial. Moving on into, and within the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, we come to, I guess you could probably say, like, the highlight or the main attraction of the Holy Land is Christ's tomb. So this is a peek inside the tomb. This is call it a rotunda that is housed over on top of the tomb, and you can see there's a Franciscan in there shining a light, making a pretty little glow coming out of there. Let's show you here. This is the angel stone. So this is actually a fragment of the stone believed to have sealed the tomb after Jesus' burial. So this is pretty cool. This is in the casing here, so you can kind of touch the outside of it, but you could actually see an actual fragment of the stone believed to have sealed that tomb, which is pretty amazing. There we are. We got our whisper walks on, listening to, it was kind of cool. You could walk around, right, and still hear our tour guides giving us instructions on what we're seeing. So there's these little peek holes in here are in the rotunda that you can kind of see inside the tomb. Here's a zoomed out view of it, and looking up at the ceiling of the chapel of the Holy Sepulchre. And then, there's another view of that looking straight up, trying to get some cool looking pictures. And here is back in kind of like in the front of that rotunda, looking up right next to the candles, and there we are, smiling in front of there as well. All right, some more pictures of Christ's tomb. Starting out here with this kind of another picture from that front view. So here we go. So after we celebrated Mass here, and I'll show you a couple more pictures about that. But after that, we each got in line to go inside the tomb, and it's a very tiny space here. We didn't get a chance to take a picture of our own, right? Because you're trying to move along, get everybody in there. So this is a picture of what it looks like with no one in there. You only have a few seconds, but yeah, this is the slab that covers Christ's tomb, right? During COVID, when everything was shut down, they uncovered this, and so you could actually get a sneak peek inside the tomb. I watched a couple of YouTube videos to kind of see what that looked like, and they discovered some things they didn't know about before, where there's a Byzantine cross on top of another slab that was on top of this slab. So that dates back to your first, second, third century. So more validation that this has been around for a while. Here's a couple of our tour attendees, tourists that were with us. So we didn't get a picture of ourselves. So that kind of gives you an idea. So you just get just a few seconds to pray. Put your cheek and your hands on the lid that covers the tomb of Jesus. It's pretty special, right? Another heart pumping moment. So we did celebrate Mass here, which is really neat. It was in Latin. It was actually my first Latin Mass, and during the liturgy of the Eucharist, it's really cool because the priests actually they hide, right? They go away inside the rotunda, and then they come out with literally the body and blood of Jesus. So it was kind of a cool way of representing Jesus risen from the tomb. Yeah, can't get any cooler than that. So there we are. We were actually sitting over here on this side. The Mass was celebrated here. This is like a really close-up view of those candles that are on the sides of the rotunda here. It's like a really close-up looking straight up. And then this is interesting, right? Because on the west side of the rotunda is the Coptic Orthodox chapel, where they have their own Mass there. So we're sharing, everyone's kind of sharing space. You have Franciscans on the opposite side. You have Coptic Orthodox on the other. So there's turf wars, go figure. So because of the problems of this, for many years, there's been two Muslim families that own the keys to the Holy Sepulchre, right? So they got a third party involved with no special interests. And I guess these Muslim families actually take pride in having this responsibility. So they, so they have to, Franciscans and Orthodox have to go through this Muslim family to work out their differences, and it's just, once again, right, it's people with kind of crowded in the same space, wanting to do, both of them worship Jesus in their own way. So it's kind of neat to see that. This is just a view kind of off to the side, just kind of a cool picture I put on there. All right, so a quick little bit of history here. So how it was the Church of Holy Sepulchre founded, and how did this all get kind of discovered? And I'm going to give you a little bit of that. Saint Helena, she was a convert to Christianity. She's the mother of the Roman Emperor Constantine. In 324 AD, Constantine sent Helena on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, as he had a great desire to find the one true cross. So Helena learned that the cross was believed to be buried at the Temple of Venus, right? That's where the pagan shrine was built. So 3 crosses were discovered. One was thought to belong to Jesus Christ, the others belonging to 2 thieves that died alongside him. And a couple of stories have been passed down. It's kind of interesting because these are pretty, I guess, legitimate stories, because they come from Christian diaries and some of the, the validated historical context or text from history. There's one that says the corpse of a dead man was laid upon 2 of the crosses and nothing happened when he touched the first couple of crosses, but then when he touched the third cross, he was brought back to life. But then there was actually another story about a leper that was instantly healed, after touching the 2 crosses was not healed, but after touching the third cross was healed. So the cross that raised the man from the dead or healed the leper became known as the true cross. And today fragments are spread out all over the world, and I've actually seen these myself. So pretty cool to see this relic that is the true cross of Jesus. The Holy Sepulchre was built by Constantine in the 4th century, and then this is Saint Helena statue here holding the one true cross. There's a zoomed out view. This is at the very bottom, the lowest you can go when you're in the Holy Sepulchre. You go all the way down the stairs, far down as you can go, off to the right, and you will see this. So this is the spot that marks where the true cross was discovered. So I mean, I guess it's if maybe there's disagreement on which story is true, but it appears that at least one of these stories is true because this has been marked for many years that the true cross was discovered. And there we are, Lee and I, down in this cave. We're sitting right next to this spot that marks the spot of the one true cross. And then also in this area are you can see medieval crosses that were carved into stone walls around the 15th century, and I put or earlier because this was another thing that was kind of discovered and re-examined during COVID, dating these crosses. So whatever the case, we know that this was built a long time ago, and so yeah, pretty neat. So there's a couple other noteworthy places in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre that I wanted to show to you, the pictures that we got. So if you know Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus, right, they're responsible for the burial of Jesus. Joseph of Arimathea is the one that provided bought the tomb for Jesus, and so they actually have their spots right next to, really close by where Jesus was buried. These are the tombs of kind of Jesus' two secret disciples, right, the ones that were responsible for the burial of Jesus. So I'll show you. I actually crawled into there. It was very like oily and dark, and it was just kind of neat to see that where those two were buried, Lee and I, with our picture there. And then off to the side is there's a Greek Orthodox chapel next to the tomb. This mosaic on the floor, heard an interesting story. This is actually called the center of the universe because Jerusalem is actually considered the center of the world, and this location is the center of Jerusalem. So this makes this little rectangular area technically the center of the universe. So that's their kind of claim, right? That's at the center. So it's pretty neat to see that. And then here's some frescoes at the Chapel of St. Helen as you're looking up. It's just some really beautiful, just awesome things to see in real life and cool pictures to take as well. All right, moving on from the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, we went to the Church of St. Anne next. Here is St. Anne with Mother Mary with her hands in prayer. A prayer to St. Anne. Joachim, your husband, and your daughter Mary lived happily in your home. Later you welcomed with love your son-in-law, St. Joseph, and then your grandson, Jesus, our Savior. So it's kind of neat. We generally kind of see Mary kind of by herself or with Jesus, right? But I guess it's important to realize that God, when it comes to God's kingdom, it's all about the family, right? So there's actually grandparents involved with Jesus while he was on this earth, right? He had a foster father, Joseph, and he had grandparents, and so very relatable to our lives. Here's a little painting that kind of shows something different. We usually see Mary either by herself or with Jesus in her arms. But you have St. Joachim and St. Anne here, kind of depicting Mary as she's growing up. And then here was a painting on the wall, and there's some rock here, and there's some original rock down here from, as we went below the church. I thought this was interesting. I just kind of noticed this, that Mary and is it St. Anne giving Jesus a bath? So isn't that funny that just like we, grandma and mom helping give our children a bath, for like how many years they had to raise Jesus in the same manner that we did. So yep, Jesus had to get baths from his mom and his grandma, just like we did. He was fully human in that regard, right? And then here's the chapel of the Church of St. Anne. Very cool acoustics, very large chapel there. All right, a couple more pictures of the Church of St. Anne, the mother of Mary. This is where she was born, of course, right? So it's the Church of St. Anne, but yeah, Mary was born here. So it was her birthplace. I caught another little picture here of some of the original rock, and then people poking or kind of tucking their notes inside the rock. Some prayers. Another picture of us in our tourist gear, having a good time. Here is just an altar there in the church. This was just kind of a light that was hanging down in the church. And there is Giovanni, one of our awesome tour guides that lived there in the Holy Land. Between him and Mike, we were just flooded with lots of information and inspiration, and they were like the best. I mean, this is why I wanted to go on this tour, because I knew I'd have the best tour guides, like of any group. Yeah, if they're not the best, they got to at least be tied for the best. All right, still day 6. We hopped on the bus and went to the pool of Bethesda. Jesus heals the paralytic here. This is in John 5, verses 1 through 8. One man was ill for 38 years, and Jesus said to him, "Do you want to be made well?" The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no one to put me into the pool." Jesus responds, "Stand up and take up your mat and walk." So first of all, isn't it cool that, if you watch The Chosen, this is a really awesome episode that was depicted on screen through The Chosen. So you could actually see the ruins of where this was. Here's kind of this was probably like the largest place of ruins, or like the tallest, right, that we saw. I don't know where the actual pool was, but this just gives you an idea of, just how old these ruins were and what actually happened here. Just a little walkway there, and I guess, yeah, just final comment on this is, isn't it just bizarre, right, that you could just sit here, open up your Bible and read, John chapter 5, and then look up and you see like the actual place where this happened, right? This is, this happens multiple times during this tour, and it just kind of like blows your mind that your eyes are able to see what you're reading from the Bible. Okay, so I have to walk through what we saw, the exhibit that was in our hotel. This is the exhibit of the Shroud of Turin. If you're not familiar with this, the Shroud of Turin is a centuries-old linen cloth. It bears the image of a crucified man, a man that millions believe to be Jesus of Nazareth. So this, might surprise you if you didn't know this, that we believe we might actually have the cloth that Jesus was covered at burial after he came down crucified from the cross. So is it really the cloth that wrapped his crucified body, or is it simply a medieval forgery, a hoax perpetrated by some clever artist? Modern science, of course, has has completed hundreds of thousands of hours of detailed study and intense research on the shroud. So this exhibit's got everything, right? It shows you the depth that many people have gone in studying the shroud, right? And a lot of it is to disprove it, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. But this is like, I guess, an X-ray version of that. Looking at this, because it's actually it's a negative image, and this is a view once you put it into 3D art. So it's actually the most studied artifact in human history, right? Of anything, the most studied artifact, and we know more about it today than we ever have before, right? Technology has kind of helped evolve our understanding of this. The cloth, it bears a negative image of a man, like just like I said. It would have taken, so if you want to duplicate this, or like what it would have taken to create this image, science has said that it would have taken a flash of supernatural light or 34 trillion watts of ultraviolet radiation to color the shroud. So that kind of gives you an idea of what if it was a forgery, where are you going to come up with a 34 trillion watts of ultraviolet radiation to make that forgery? So, so when you do all this analysis and put it under the proverbial microscope, right, you get a lot of cool images, and this exhibit just had it all, right? I could have stayed here for many hours to kind of see everything that was here. So based on like the wounds that is seen on this image, they were able to kind of get an idea what weapons or of torture that was used during the scourging of Jesus. So like these whips here, used by the Romans, were used to scourge him. And then this is a sculpture, like a real life sculpture, right, based on the image, right? They're able to use technology and computers to design a 3D image of what this man would have looked like. So skeptical scientists, of course, right? And, this gets a lot of press and attention. Skeptical scientists keep kind of coming in and they get eager to disprove it. But what they end up doing is they end up furthering along the research because there's yet to be any evidence to disprove it, right? I mean, is there evidence to completely prove it? It's like, well, that's not really possible because we don't really have the body of Jesus, but you can just get closer and closer in your confidence. So these scientists, of course, what happens when they can't disprove it, they either get discouraged and go look for something else, or they become unexpectedly converted to Christianity. So that's what happens. And then here's a bunch of other exhibits, right? So I just don't expect you to try to read this writing, but they're just looking at the artwork and 3D images and the flower petals and just just all the everything you can think of when you cut out pieces of this cloth and study it and try to relate it to the geography and the time and the place and and the flowers and everything that was found, the pollen, right, that was found on it, is all making a really good case that this is legit. So highly recommend anyone to dive deeper into this if you're interested. Okay, I'm gonna give you a sneak peek. We took that tour by ourselves. It was like 8 o'clock at night, and everyone else did the earlier tour. So Father David, he's like, "Hey, you want to see something really cool?" So he brought us into this room in the hotel that is a work in process of this um, Pentecost 360-degree painting around all the walls and in the ceiling of this room. So this wasn't open to the public yet. So we, go figure, Lee and I stumble upon something unique to go on a little journey and kind of see something that not many other people can see. So the priest that commissioned this project, he identified a lacking in the true artistic portrayal of the 120-person experience of the descending of the Holy Spirit, or what we call Pentecost. So it's an amazing project, right? So there's a Brazilian artist. He's actually pictured right here. He put himself in as one of the 120 people present at Pentecost. So it's a 3-year, $1 million project with just one artist that does all this. And he's got 1 year left. This is 2 years into it. So not all the flames are in some of these paintings, and the ceiling was not done yet. And I'm like, this picture's kind of cropped too. So it's actually doesn't really do a disservice when you actually stand like in front of it, eye levels like right here, and you're looking up and seeing how big this is and how real it looks, right? It actually looks like Pentecost is happening in front of your face. And there's Mother Mary. So everyone has a different expression, right? She easily recognizes the Holy Spirit, so she's looking up in anticipation because they waited 9 days. That's why we do a 9-day novena, waiting for the coming of the Holy Spirit. So there's different characters in here. That's Mother Mary. And then, like I said, that's the artist. Put himself in the kind of bowing down. He put himself in as one of the 120 spectators. All right, another wall right here. So this shows more of, right, illustrating the flames of the Holy Spirit coming down amongst all the people that were waiting. And this is Mary Magdalene. There she is right here. I like just the expression of, where their hands are and their faces, and just how people are kind of taking it all in, right? Here is another wall right here. So like I said, the different expressions and reactions, right? I mean, imagine like the brightness of the Holy Spirit, the overpowering, right? The wind blowing. People are either exuberant, like this guy is, just in like whoa, right? I mean, just what's going on here, right? Some people are like surprised. Guy's covering his face. Just art is just amazing. I can never look at this guy. It's just, in party mode, right? He's got his hands up and right. It's like the greatest thing ever. The descending of the Holy Spirit. So this is kind of what it's like to experience God, right? Everyone is either in Jubilee, they're scared, right? Unprepared, right? Fulfillment of waiting, and that's kind of what happens. So they pray like I said, the 9-day novena before the Holy Spirit descended upon them, right? I showed you where this was. This is where the place of the Last Supper was, the upper room, in that area. A few slides ago, this is where this actually took place in real life, but there wasn't a whole lot to kind of see because that area was kind of destroyed and rebuilt. Here is one more, I think, wall, the colors and the Yeah, since I cropped this out, you can't see that this is actually on a huge wall. This is Peter right here. So this is slide 55, and I've listened, I've gone back and listened to myself talk a few times, and just realized, man, I say the word right a lot, and so I apologize. I'm not a professional speaker. It's really, I'm more of an analytical person that does math and spreadsheets and doesn't get up in front of people and talk and do these sorts of things. So you get what you get. I'm sorry. Apologize for if it's annoying you that I'm saying the word right. I say the word but I say the word right more, right? Um, so I'll try to be more conscientious of that in case that's annoying anyone because it's starting to annoy me. All right, so let's let's go on, right? Okay, Dominus Flevit is where we went next. It's day 7. We moved on to another day. This is a picture of me and my beautiful wife. Um, and it's just a great picture here. I'm going to go on to more of what this place means in the next slide. Okay, here is another panoramic view of Dominus Flevit without me and my wife in the way. So Dominus Flevit means the Lord wept. So in Luke 19:41 through 44, as he drew near, he saw the city and wept over it, saying, "If this day you only knew what makes for peace, but now it is hidden from your eyes. For the days are coming upon you when your enemies will raise a palisade against you. They will smash you to the ground and your children within you, and they will not leave one stone upon another within you because you did not recognize the time of your visitation." These are Jesus' words, weeping over the city as he looked exactly in this area, seeing the whole city of Jerusalem at the time. So the temple was destroyed in 70 AD, right? This is 40 years after Jesus said that, so he was prophetic as he always is. And yet, right, it's still hidden from their eyes, right? It was hidden at the time, and then this many years, even 40 years later, and temple's destroyed, and it's been hidden ever since. So what was cool about this is, as we walked down to this spot from Bethpage, that's where we got off the bus. This is where the Palm Sunday procession began. So I got to walk down the same pathway as where Jesus was on the donkey in his way down to the gates, actually over through here on Palm Sunday. So that was pretty cool. All right, so I've got, I'm pointing out, I'm going to highlight in the next couple of slides what I'm going to zoom in on the next few slides and kind of show you the places that we've been, right? We're kind of doing a wrap up. I just said the word right. We're doing a wrap up of the first 6 days of what we saw in Jerusalem, and we kind of hopped around to place. So check this out. I think I can go off of memory here, but the Kidron Valley is here. You're going to see the Kidron Valley many places in the Bible. So this is the valley that you had to cross from going from this hillside over to the old city, Jerusalem. So over here is St. Peter Gallicantu. We have the Dormition Abbey where Mary's house, and then you have Temple Mount, and then the Holy Sepulchre is right here. And then over here is the Garden of Gethsemane right by these golden domes. So let me show you a zoomed in view of what this looks like next. Okay, like I said, the home of Mary. The Last Supper location is right here. St. Peter Gallicantu is this is what it looks like. Zooming in, or Caiaphas' house, Palace of Caiaphas is right there. And then Garden of Gethsemane is right beneath these golden domes right here. So Garden of Gethsemane is over here. And then, like I said, we walked down, started the procession of the Palm Sunday procession. This is the old gate. This is all filled in now, but this is where Jesus entered on the donkey. And the stone minaret right here is where Jesus is taking Pilate, and where he's scourged, and where the way of the cross begins. And like I said, there's the Temple Mount, and then behind that, off to the right, so you see these domes here. This is the Calvary, and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is right there. And here is a picture of all 90 of us. 2 buses for everyone. There's Lee. There's the Northern Iowa hat. The dude right there. That's me. And the rest of us the full crew. It was awesome. Just, that's, if you're going on these on a pilgrimage like this, right? It's, you start ranking of all what's the coolest things you get to experience, and one of the top things you get to do is you get to meet other people, and go along on the journey with them and get to know them and become, extended family with them. It's really great group of people. That wish we could, go together on, do this again, or go on other pilgrimages. It was just so much fun. And of course, Lee was kind of like the life of the party, as she usually sticks out in groups like this. All right, and then some more pictures of us before we leave Dominus Flevit. Temple Mount's in the background, so there's Lee and I looking fine. Zoomed in view of us right here. And then, yeah, okay, get one of us kissing, right? She's always got to do this. And then there she is, millions of pictures of just her then. And this is one of, many that I deselected, or one that I actually selected and deselected all the other ones that she makes me take all these pictures of her. But she's beautiful. She's worth taking many pictures of. Right. Okay, so I guess I forgot I got more pictures here. As we're leaving, walking up this hill, you can see, get a closer view of all the tombs on the Mount of Olives. What did I say? It was like $400,000 to get your plot here, something like that. $400,000, $200,000. It's outrageous, whatever it is. Right, price of real estate's gone up in the last 2,000 years. Inflation is real. Here is a view out looking the windows of this little chapel. This is actually the picture that was on our pilgrimage tour guidebook. And there's a couple more pictures of the chapel that was there near Dominus Flevit. That's about all I got to say about that. Here was me being artistic, looking at the Mount of Olives and the tombstones with a little framed in stone window I found. There's a kind of a close-up view of those, and bouncing in here there's the outside of that chapel, those pictures I showed to you on the previous slide. All right, we left Jerusalem at this point. All right, so this is slide 64, and we finally left Jerusalem. So Jerusalem is kind of a pilgrimage in itself. Now we get to see what is outside of Jerusalem. So this is so following the baptism, Jesus is led by the Holy Spirit into the desert, right? This is what we mean by going out in the desert during Lent. It's a time of personal prayer for Jesus in preparation for his public ministry. He's tempted by Satan to renounce his vocation. The monastery here has existed since the 3rd century. This is kind of built up on the mountain here on these rocks. Here's another view, kind of overlooking this valley here. But guess what? We didn't get to see this. I stole these pictures from the internet. The site was closed due to an incident they had that day in the nearby area of the West Bank. So they had to close it just for security reasons. It was just kind of a one-day thing. They reopened it the next day after we already left. So Lee and I in our tour bus didn't get to see this. So I want to put this in here just so I could show, because now we're kind of in the same boat. For those of you that are not ever going to go on a pilgrimage, you're seeing stuff that I didn't get to see in person as well. So I'm going to show you a couple of things that were inside Temptation Mount, some Matthew 4, verses 1 through 11. This is the devil in red writing. I chose red font for the devil. If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread. This is the devil, obviously. And Jesus says, it is written, one does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. The devil tries a second time to tempt Jesus. You are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and on their hands they will bear you up, so that you will not dash your foot against a stone. And Jesus says, again, it is written, do not put your Lord God to the test. And a third temptation, showing him all the kingdoms of the world. All these I give to you, if you will fall down and worship me. Jesus says a third time, away with you, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve only him. And he shooed him away, just like we have to as well. The devil shoos away, and then the angels come to minister Jesus. Great mosaic here. It tells, if you don't like reading the Bible, you like pictures instead, well, there you go. Just look at this picture, and you will understand the scripture. Here is another painting this is all from, I'm stealing this from, this is what is located at that site. There's Jesus shooting my shoe. Go away, fly. And inside, I got another slide of this. Here's a picture of inside the caves. All right, so this is cool. This is the stone where Jesus sat during one of Satan's temptations. A zoomed out view. This is it looks like it's kind of like carved, or maybe just from people rubbing it over 2,000 years. It would have been cool to see this and rub this with my own hands, but I'm the same boat as everyone listening to this. That's maybe never going to go to the Holy Land. But yeah, this is marked as, by tradition, that this is a stone where Jesus actually sat on. So you could have touched this stone where Jesus sat during one of Satan's temptations. How cool would that have been? All right, on the way to the Jordan River. So Bethany, we didn't go into the town of Bethany. You might recognize Bethany in the Bible. This is in the West Banks, where Jesus stayed with his friends Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. Lazarus, who he raised from the dead. Lee actually put this on her picture. She spelled Lazarus wrong. It should be an A. I'll have to chastise her for that. So we now see, leaving Jerusalem, you're going to now see the desert where the Israelites wandered around for 40 years. 40 years in the desert. And then boom, this is all of a sudden we're out of the land of milk and honey. This is the wilderness where John the Baptist went to, where he stayed and did his ministry, right? So that he didn't have the plush area that was in Jerusalem. So like I said, right, it makes you realize why Jerusalem and the surrounding area is truly the land of milk and honey, because everything outside of that is just dry and desert. So, our bus is going along this route, right? This is where Jesus and the apostles would have traveled the same road that we're taking, right? Coming from Jericho to Jerusalem, because they would always follow the Jordan River. So we're kind of still following in Jesus' footsteps and his apostles. And here is a view. This is a little peek from the bus. We got a little peek of the Dead Sea from afar, right as we were turning the corner to snap this photo. The Dead Sea is 34% salt content. It is the second saltiest lake in the world, and it's 1,400 feet below sea level. So it'd have been cool to try to wade in there and maybe take a drink and die maybe from the salt content. But pretty neat little fun fact. I forgot to look this up before we record this, but I think, is it Great Lake Salt Lake is number one? Maybe you guys, whoever, you can check that out and fact check me and see what number one is, in case everyone's gonna be curious. Whenever you say this is the second biggest, second saltiest, they're gonna be like, well, what's number one? I think it's Great Salt Lake, but go check it out and let me know. Okay, I couldn't resist. I tried looking up the saltiest body of water in the world, and I was getting different answers from the internet. It's not the Great Salt Lake in Utah, but I don't even know. The Dead Sea is the second saltiest in the world. So this is what you get, right? You start looking at the internet, because there's lakes and ponds and seas, but whatever, it's not important. Dead Sea is salty. Let's move on. All right, Jordan River. Starting with the Old Testament, the Israelites were delivered by God from the Egyptians as they crossed through the Red Sea and then crossed through the Jordan River into the Promised Land. So we're at the Jordan River now. We actually took some bottles of this water home, and we'd be glad to share it with some folks. So the Jordan River has historical significance in both Old Testament and New Testament, right? So it's not just the baptism. So the waters of Jordan stopped flowing when Joshua had the Ark of the Covenant, right? And the Israelites carried this Ark of the Covenant across it on dry land. In the New Testament, John the Baptist called the Jews to come out into the wilderness to be purified by the baptism of repentance in the Jordan. So it was cool. We got to actually wade in the same water that touched all these, that touched, Jesus. Jesus was baptized here. So let me show you some more picture. Here's a view of kind of what it looks like as you're walking down to the Jordan River. Matthew 3:16, after Jesus was baptized, he came up from the water, and behold, the heavens were opened. He saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and coming upon him. And a voice came from the heavens saying, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I'm well pleased." I stood here and wondered, what was it like to look up in this same sky I'm looking at as I stand in this water, looking up and see the Spirit, and then hear God's voice speak, right, audibly. Very profound. This is why you have to go on this pilgrimage if you can. Just so you can just have that awe and wonder moment of just knowing that you're standing in the exact same spot, looking in the same sky where God's voice was spoken and Jesus was baptized and the Spirit of God descending upon him. Jesus by his death on the cross and the water that flows from his side is a sign of the baptism and then the new covenant. Little bonus bullet point for you. Here is Lee and I getting, I rolled up my jeans. I still don't think I washed these jeans because I wanted to like have the stains of the Jordan River on them just for, so I could look at it and say, ha, that's actually from the Jordan River. How many people can say that? That is so cool. And there is me kind of rebaptizing myself. This is pretty cool. This is my wife. She's a shutterbug, like I said. You know, you gotta love her, but she just never knows when to stop taking pictures. She caught the moment, and then she just keeps taking more pictures. And I'm always saying, "Would you put the phone down? Stop taking pictures. You're just gonna make this more difficult for me for when I try to find photos to put on this presentation or in a graduation video for my kids." So a little humor for you, and what my kids know exactly what this is all about. There's pictures of this, of us with these facial expressions because she just keeps snapping. Oh, and then we have to kiss again and make everyone, make our kids throw up. Kissing in the Jordan River. If you notice, right, you're thinking, oh, the Jordan River should be much bigger than that. Today it's only about a tenth of the size of it because it's used for irrigation nowadays. So it's lost 90% of its vastness. And this is our neighbor, Catherine Burdett, with my wife Lee in the Jordan River. And another picture of her in the water. Yay! Okay, if you remember, I have to get creative again since I can't show embedded videos if I want to download it or upload this to YouTube. So here is Lee and I at the Jordan River. Here's a little clip of us. Oh, come on.
You can baptize me in the name of the Father. You can't rebaptize. The Son. And of the Holy Spirit.
Oops. All right. So that was a unique way of trying to show that, and those people singing, I don't know who that was. In the background, it was another group. So it's just kind of a funny way of doing this, but it's the only way I want to show these clips to you. And then there's Lee and I, picture of us in the Jordan River one more time. And then, hey, look at this $10 bill. Why would I put this here? Because I'm standing there in the water and taking it all in, praying for good fortune to happen to me, for God to be my life. And then this $10 bill, not this one here, but a $10 bill was floating down the river, and I asked, you know, as a good steward, honest person, I asked if this was anyone's $10 bill, and no one claimed it, so I made $10 by going to the Jordan River that God just, you know, put in the river and floated down to me. So there we go. Can never complain that he's not generous. Okay, back to more slides. I don't have video clips of me. I should actually like put on a shirt if I'm gonna actually do this, but I'm just too lazy. I'm just trying to get this thing done and get it out the door because I know a lot of people are waiting for this presentation. So let's get moving on the way to Cana. This is day 7 on the bus here after the Jordan River. Road to Cana. You can see fields of wheat and mustard seeds here. So this is some more, you know, we passed through the desert where the John the Baptist was roaming, and now we're getting a little more green, a little more pretty scenery. So you can see kind of some fields here, and here's some palm tree farms in Jericho area. So instead of like, you know, cornfields, you're going to see palm tree farms out here in Israel. And there's a little close-up view. These are all taken from the bus. Here are some summer cows. Some are black and white, some are brown. Haha, that's a joke that Colorado people tell. Here is some more of the landscape. You can see, you know, it's interesting, like you see the irrigation here. So you look at like these first 3 pictures, and then here, and then the irrigation ditches. I'll swear, I'm like, you know what? This terrain reminds me a lot of Grand Junction, Colorado, right? With the whole this landscaping and the terrain. It was just funny, like you just wouldn't thinking of Grand Junction, Colorado when you're in Israel. But irrigation ditches, this reminds me a lot of my childhood, taking trips out there. And some more pictures here as we're making our way on the bus tour. You can see green Nice little green field here, and then now here's Mount Tabor. So this is one of the last few sites that I'm going to show you in a few more slides, but we're approaching that area, and you can see the little church up there where the Transfiguration occurred. Another view as we're getting closer to Mount Tabor. It's a pretty big mountain. We drove up it, but yeah, it's quite the hike, I'm sure, if you walked up it, which Jesus and Peter and James and John went up to this mountain for the Transfiguration. All right, it's time for a stop. We get off the bus and we are in Cana. If you know what happened at Cana, I'm going to tell you soon. This is the church at the wedding at Cana. There, I just gave it away. The town of Cana is near Jesus' hometown of Nazareth. It's where Jesus performed his first public miracle of turning the water into wine. Everyone's favorite miracle, right? Mary's words to the servants, do whatever he tells you, are words for us today in our own lives, of course. Here is a little painting that was there that's showing the jars. In this small stone cistern, in this display here, it dates back to the 1st century and it was fitted into a flagstone floor. There were 6 cisterns at the wedding of Cana. If you read that in the Bible, you'll see there were 6, and each held 120 bottles of wine. So if you're good at math, that's 720 bottles of wine. So no wonder it was a great wedding. Jesus, was definitely a hero at that wedding. And here are some of the ruins kind of nearby at the wedding at Cana. The coloring of this rock was kind of interesting. I think it's the lighting kind of causing this, but just, once again, are we looking at rocks here, or is there more meaning and significance behind this? There always is. That's why it's good to have tour guides to tell you. And guess what happens here? You can line up and renew your vows. Here's a group of tourists that were all dressed similar, getting ready to go into the chapel to renew their vows at the wedding of Cana. And guess what? That's what we are going to do as well. So here is inside of the chapel, this little small picture. And there we are. We're getting ready to walk down the aisle again, 4.5 years later. So this was a pretty cool occasion. We were very ecstatic and giddy, like little kids again. Look at that. Look at our faces. Just kind of cool because you just didn't know, right? I mean, we knew we were going to be renewing our vows, but you just didn't know, like, you don't know what it's going to be like, actually being there, right? It's like this is the wedding at Cana spot, and we're renewing our vows, and they give us a rose, and there's no kids here to bug us, and it's just me and her. So look who's getting married again. What an amazing, beautiful place to renew your vows. And there we are after the renewal, got our picture taken, a very happy day. And then amazing, right? I mean, this should be in the world record book that we actually made eye contact for 45 uninterrupted seconds. How amazing. We haven't done that since. All right, here's a couple pictures of our hotel. So this hotel is on the Sea of Galilee. We're moving. This is day 7. We're on the Sea of Galilee. This hotel is the Goma by Israel Design in Migdal. Not sure if I had the accent right. Here is a view at nighttime, the lights, city lights in the background, and the pool. So this is like a little patio area outside with these cool little lanterns up in the ceiling. Some more pictures of food. Haven't showed a whole lot of pictures of food, but this place had a lot of options. Here was some. This was delicious. A lot of this food like didn't look good, but tasted good, right? And some of the food that looked good wasn't all that tasteful. So the quantity of food was insane. Like there was hundreds of items to choose from this place. Just a massive amount of selection. I guess, but for me, I thought the quality is really only good for some of the items. So luckily you had 100 to choose from. If 80% of it was bad, you still could have like your plate full of 20 different things. But more than 20% was good though. Here's another picture, right? So here's a picture of the buffets that they had out for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Just tons of stuff to choose from. All right, we're still on day 7. So we showed up to Magdala. Magdala, the hometown of Saint Mary Magdalene, was a prosperous fishing village on the western shore of the Sea of Galilee. Magdala was stormed by the Romans in 67 AD and totally destroyed, with most of its Jewish population either killed or sold into slavery. And this church was very modern. This was, do I have the date on one of these slides? It was built not too long ago, and so you have the altar is an actual boat, and you have like this cool green and white marble stone that depicts the water, the boat in the water, and then the tabernacle, right? Jesus is literally in the boat in this tabernacle, just like he was literally in the boat on the Sea of Galilee. Pretty unique. Someone very artistic came up with this idea. So, like I said, this modern church, it's called the Duke in Oltum, which draws its name from Luke 5:4, where Jesus instructs Simon Peter to launch into the deep or put out into the deep water. This place provides a place of prayer, teaching, worship for Christians of all backgrounds and denominations. It's dedicated to the public life of Jesus, its transforming encounters, and honors the women of the Bible and all women of faith through its women's atrium. And we were there at nighttime. I had to grab this picture from like the internet, or actually I think I might have got this from Chris, one of our tour guides with School of Faith. It actually shows the water, so you have, looking out these windows, you would actually see water. So you could see this boat and then real water in the background. All right, some more pictures of inside of the Magdala in this church. There's some mosaics on the wall. This is Jesus and Fotina, the woman at the well, I believe. And then is that Jesus curing Jairus' daughter. Then it's Jesus walking on the water, calming the seas. And when Jesus first meets Simon Peter, calling the first apostles as they're washing their nets in the fresh spring, which I'm going to show you actual pictures of that in real life. Mary statue, wooden statue, pregnant with the baby Jesus. And then this is the ceiling inside the church. It's got just a snapshot of Our Lady of Guadalupe. It's really huge painting on the ceiling there. Here's the outside of the church. I think that's been on some more slides of Magdala. So I'm going to actually show the ruins, and if you see my bullet point down here. All right, but this is day 7. We just went to the Magdala at nighttime. We're exhausted. We were like, we missed this part because we were so tired we had to take a nap. I just couldn't do it anymore. So I'm taking pictures again from Chris from Trinity Travel, and good thing someone got these pictures for us. Been cool to see this in person, but man, I was exhausted. All right, there's the iconic Magdala flower. This was just discovered, right? They discovered the ancient city of Magdala by accident, right? When they were digging for making these hotels and resorts. So it was cool that, I mean, how cool is that you discover this ancient city? So there's the Magdala, iconic Magdala flower there, and the flooring. There's that piece right there, and it's just some more ruins. And there's a zoomed out view of what was kind of the archaeological site of the ancient city of Magdala. Okay, slide 83. We are on day 8. I'm telling you, man, this is why this is taking me so long. Wow, did we see a lot on this trip? And I told you this is why you think we got so tired and had to take a nap, because it's a lot we're taking in. All right, so Nazareth. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? John 1, 46. Nazareth was a very small village. It probably had less than 400 people, mostly belonging to large extended families. Today's population Nazareth is 80,000. Here is a view overlooking the city of Nazareth. Not so small anymore. And, one thing, since it is big now, but I did see a McDonald's, and so I couldn't help but wonder, like, did Jesus really ever eat here? Was this McDonald's still, was this the original McDonald's back in Nazareth in Jesus' time? I could just imagine Jesus in the back of the Honda Odyssey asking Joseph and Mary, can I please have a Happy Meal? I've been a good boy, but Joseph, just like me as a dad, looks at his McDonald's app and says, no, son, we cannot afford that. We're going to get the 20% off coupon and move on. So that's my little funny story about seeing McDonald's in Nazareth. So hope you enjoyed that. Here is a mosaic of Joseph and Mary's home, where Jesus spent most of his life, right? Most of his life was not in the public. 30 years of regular home life, just like my own life with me and my wife and kids. So daily duties, right? Cooking and cleaning and home projects and all that fun stuff. I don't know if Joseph had to go through all the trouble that I have too, with dealing with insurance companies and car insurance and home insurance, but I'm sure they still had the struggles, right? Just trying to find food and daily living. The community consisted mainly of farmers, Nazareth community that is, with few craftsmen to serve their needs. This would have been Joseph and Jesus. Like I said, 30 years, most of his life is spent here. Here are some of the ruins of Nazareth, and where the home of Jesus' boyhood home. The size of cisterns excavated under St. Joseph's Church. So the Church of St. Joseph was built over these ruins. It's thought to be the business area of ancient Nazareth, and the tradition complains that Joseph's workshop is located here. So we're confident that this is the boyhood home of Jesus, and where St. Joseph and Mary raised Jesus. And here are some like ancient steps. You can see like they're all indented from all the millions of pilgrims over the years that have gone down these steps into like the corridors of the home of Jesus and Mary and Joseph. And here is a baptism well, I believe, in these ruins. So it was cool. You actually get to see the boyhood home of Jesus. And then here is the St. Joseph's Church of the Holy Family. Here is the altar, and then close-up view of this painting here shows Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, the Holy Family. Another painting off to the side up here, you can see there's no better way of dying than how Joseph died, right? Because you can imagine he would have died in the arms of Jesus and Mary. So that painting kind of displays what that was like. That's how we all want to die, right? In the arms of Jesus and Mary. Mary holding the baby Jesus statue. And then I believe that is Joseph, right? With the angel comforting him. I actually don't know exactly. Maybe that's Jesus in the agony garden, but an angel is coming to the aid of one of those two, Joseph and baby Jesus statue. And then there's a statue of Joseph outside the church that I guess people rub his knees for good luck. So somehow someone came up with the idea that, hey, rub his knees for good luck, and everyone does that, and they rub, it's a nice shiny spot on this bronze statue of Saint Joseph. Okay, so after the Church of Saint Joseph and the boyhood home of Jesus and Saint Joseph's workshop, we're seeing all these cool things. Now it's off to the Church of the Annunciation. The angel Gabriel came to Mary and said, "Hail, favored one, the Lord is with you. Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. Behold, you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you shall name him Jesus. He will be great and will be called Son of the Most High. So this is a little plaque outside of the Basilica of the Annunciation. And here is this is a modern church as well, built quite recently. And zoom in, you can see there's the angel Gabriel. It's right here, the top center part of the church. And there's a lot of cool doors that we have seen on this tour. And here's one of them showing some of the scenes from the Bible. This is like just kind of a small picture of the door entering the Church of Annunciation. And then here is a view. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this a little bit later on. This is the picture inside. So Mary puts no limits on God. That was first four quotes from Scripture. With her yes, she gave God unconditional permission to do whatever he thought best for her. And because she gave everything to God, she received everything in return. She received God himself dwelling in her soul and in her womb. And there is a one more picture squeeze. I'm going to have another slide here with more pictures of inside. But Mary, stained glass window with baby Jesus. Okay, pictures of inside the Church of the Annunciation. Stained glass window with reflection on the floor was pretty cool. This is the altar. There was a mass being celebrated inside. You can see a painting here with God, and it's like the Holy Trinity being represented here, and then different events from the Bible. Here's a view with candles in the foreground, trying to be artistic here, capture the altar in the background, candles in the foreground. This church had 2 levels, so this is the top level. It had large artwork that were donated by different countries. So I'm going to show you each country's donation contribution to the Church of the Annunciation. So you can kind of see how art is different through each country. It's pretty neat, and it's also neat to see each country, have their own veneration and respect for Mary. The U.S. start with USA first. So this probably what you would expect USA to look like, right? A modern image of Mary, very modern artistic representation of Mary. Here is Greece, Egypt, Mexico. There's apparitions. Both of these were actual apparitions of Mary at these locations in Egypt and Mexico. Austria. Some of these get really tiny. And then, of course, I had to give props to the Asian countries. Go Asian Nation. I'm a little partial to Asians. Vietnam right here. And Japan. There's Portugal. That's not Asian, but there's Portugal. And then Thailand is right here. Of course, where's Laos? Laos didn't have one here, so Lee is going to petition and see if maybe someone can make one. We get Laos on. We got to get Laos representing. Okay, so here is the bottom of the church. This is the place where the actual Annunciation occurred. So in this area, here or near, somewhere here, right, the angel Gabriel stood in the midst of Mary and told her that she was about to become miraculously pregnant with Jesus. This was a very intimate. You can imagine, right? This place was very significant, very touching, very filled with the Spirit. Great place for prayer. We got some time to kind of sit in prayer right getting towards the end of our pilgrimage. So I'm glad we had some time here to kind of reflect, because this place had a spiritual presence to it. The picture on the right, right here, shows a soaring cupola, which represents an inverted lily opening its petals to the shrine below. The symbolism combines the lily as an image of Mary's purity. And so you often see statues of Joseph holding lilies, right? Giving lilies to Mary, right? So that's, I never really knew that's the reason why. But Joseph gives Mary lilies because of her purity. So I didn't know that. Learned something new. So cool little picture here. So a few more pictures. You can kind of see some of the ruins are covered here, right, with the modern marble and stone built around it. So actually, that picture I had in the previous slide was through the gate. There's a gate here. There's Lee praying in front of the place of the Annunciation. So imagine one of the archangels, Gabriel, was standing here, and Mother Mary, before the moment she got pregnant, was standing here somewhere, and you get a chance to pray. You got to go on this pilgrimage if you can, so you can pray like within footsteps of where that actually was located. Here is a zoomed out view, so there's like a railing that you can pray in from a distance from the place of the Annunciation, and here's kind of off to the side, just getting you different angles to fill up the slide with some pictures. Some more of the original rocks there, and then a door. Cool little steel door with sculpted images on it as well. All right, moving on, another site. This is the synagogue church. This is where Jesus was rejected while he was teaching. The initial response was favorable, but when Jesus indicated that the proclamation of the good news was to include the Gentiles, that's me, that's a lot of us, his hearers were enraged and tried to throw him off a high cliff. How dare they do that? But guess what? Jesus was not, he came to light the world on fire, not to make everyone happy, because it's impossible to make everyone happy. So here is him preaching, and then the reaction, like I said, right? It was not good. Okay, fish dinner on the Sea of Galilee. We're getting close. I'm going to start showing pictures of the sea. We got to eat here. This is known as St. Peter's fish. It's actually tilapia, and it was pretty good. I'm not a huge fish fan, but if you batter it, you give me some French fries, I'm golden. Lee is happy with the fish head still on it. I'm definitely accustomed to seeing that and eating it myself from being at all these Laotian gatherings that I have been to. Like I said, I like mine breaded. Like I just pretty much just said that. She's in heaven, the whole fish head still on. We should have called this the Laotian style fish, but people over there don't even know what Laotian is. There's me eating my breaded fish fillet and fish and chips. And look at this. There is she making a funny face, kissing the fish. She's in heaven, right? Like her favorite food. And there we are. Picture right next to the Sea of Galilee. There's the sea right there on the shore. And then boom, there's pictures of all of our peoples, all of our friends on the tour with us, eating at this restaurant, eating St. Peter's fish. I think I got almost everybody there. Had to shrink them. Oh, there's one more. Okay, next location is the Mount of Beatitudes. This is the traditional site of the Mount of Beatitudes. It's located on the northwestern shore of the Sea of Galilee. It was here in the Sermon on the Mount that Jesus gave his disciples the new law for the new covenant. This is the chapel that was built on this site. And then here is actually the place of the Sermon on the Mount. Professional sound engineers have actually set up equipment in this area to test the phenomenon of this area, because as you can see, it looks like a natural amphitheater. They were able to verify that 5,000 people could have heard one person speak with the testing that they've done. So this gives us confidence that this is where Jesus had the Sermon on the Mountain. You can imagine 5,000 people in this valley sitting on the hills. Whether Jesus was on the water or up high, either way, you could have heard one person speak amongst the 5,000 people. But yeah, imagine all five. It was cool to look, once again, imagine this was the actual site where 5,000 people were and Jesus was speaking the Beatitudes. Blessed are they who mourn, for they will be comforted. There's one of them. Here is Lee with the Beatitudes in the background, posing on the rock, looking fine. There we are by a tree. I think Chris took this picture. I didn't see this view, but this is awesome. Like I said, we had a lot of hazy days. Beautiful weather, temperature-wise. No rain, but picture-wise, photos, you couldn't really get one, but this is a great shot here with these pretty purple pink flowers with you can see the blueness of the Sea of Galilee. I never really got a picture of the water being blue. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. Let anyone who thirst, come to me and drink. So more words, all these plaques were around this area of Jesus's Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes. Here's a zoomed out view, I think courtesy of Chris. He kind of bailed me out. I'm finding good pictures here. And then another view, kind of looking at the valley where the Sermon on the Mount was, and the water and the mountains in the background. Beautiful place, a must see. A few more pictures here before we move on. This is overlooking on the other side of this fence is the where the Sermon on the Mount took place. Once again, there's actually, I think this is new. Didn't really ask anyone whether or not this banana field was never here before. I think people used to be able to walk down through this valley, right, where the 5,000 people were. But we didn't go down there. We actually were just from afar. Here's a nice little view of the side of the pillars on the side of the church. From inside the church, or I guess right outside the church, overlooking, you see the palm trees. Another picture of a tree, and inside of the church on the Mount of Beatitudes is what it looks like inside. And then the sunset, sun going down. So this gives you kind of a panoramic view of the valley where the 5,000 people were. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the land. It's good to be meek. I'm trying to be meek. I want to inherit some of that land. Okay, I'm cranking right along. Day 9, Capernaum or Capharnaum. I don't know why it's pronounced that way. I think it's just a translation. Capernaum was a town located on the northern shore of the Sea of Galilee. This is where Peter and Andrew live. Capernaum is the town of Jesus. Here are the ruins for Capernaum. Here is a view. It's a good shot here. Didn't get got a shot here with not many people kind of in the way. See some of the ruins of Capernaum. Jesus worked many miracles in Capernaum and the surrounding cities, but many did not come to faith. For this reason, Jesus spoke against Capernaum, and the city was never rebuilt after being abandoned centuries later. So this was discovered later on because the city did not survive because they did not have faith. Like I said before, was cloudy and hazy, but this was actually kind of cool. This was probably preferable to get some different pictures because you get sunlight beaming from the heavens above, beaming down. So I try to capture some cool pictures of that sunlight creeping through the clouds. This was really neat. This was a good reminder here of when you see homeless people. This was called the homeless Jesus, so it's got holes in his feet from the nails, right? So this is supposed to represent the crucified Jesus laying on the bench, as a representation of the homeless. So when you see the homeless, you see Jesus. As a little reminder for you. All right, a couple more pictures of Capernaum. Here's another view with not a lot of people in it to kind of see what this area looked like. Late 4th century AD, the White Synagogue. This was built upon the remains of the Synagogue of Jesus. And there is Mike Scherzlik, our main tour guide, giving us a talk, opening us up the scriptures in like we were there. Here is a picture of us, tourist. Like I said, there's me trying to capture some cool light coming through the clouds while we were listening to the talk. All right, so now same area, Capernaum. So this is the house of Peter. After the middle of the 1st century AD, this spot was marked as the most likely the house of Peter, as well as the home of Jesus in Capernaum. Excavators discovered that over the years, the function of the house changed dramatically. Household cooking pots and bowls were replaced by large storage jars and oil lamps. So these radical alterations indicated that the house no longer functioned as a residence, but instead had become a place for communal gatherings, which means that became the domestic church at the time, right? The original house had been renovated and converted into the central hall of a rudimentary church. So this is the chapel above. This railing kind of goes around that area. So if you're looking down through this glass covering, this is what you would see below it. So there is a view. If you're looking down, you can kind of see the ruins below. You can see, I don't think an explanation, but the upside down hearts. I thought that was a reflection of St. Peter being crucified upside down. So anything that you see of St. Peter He didn't want to be crucified in the same manner of Jesus. So, anytime you see something upside down and it's in the house of Peter, that tells me that must mean symbolism of his upside down crucifixion. That's what I'm going with, anyways. Here is another view right below, right? The church is right above here. The octagonal, so why is it an octagon? Octagonal martyria was built to commemorate an important site. This is the original house of Peter that once stood here. If you also recall, Christian architect that did the Temple Mount for the Muslims did it in the shape of an octagon because the number 8 represents completeness, right? Seven days of creation, 8 represents completeness. That's why we have 8 major feast days of Easter. Everything, of course, there's a meaning for everything. The church doesn't make things up. So this is another indication that this was a church. This was the house of Peter because it was the shape of an octagon. And there we are celebrating Mass above the house of Peter. Okay, let's get to the Sea of Galilee. The Sea of Galilee, also called the Sea of Tiberias or Lake Gennesaret, is located in the northern third of Israel. There is Lee posing by the sign of the Sea of Galilee. And then here is some awesome pictures with the sunlight beaming down, and I found just like some rags over a rock here, trying to be artistic and capture a good little photo here with the waves crashing. This is being by the Sea of Galilee is awesome. It's just like, what's your favorite part of the Holy Land? I don't know, like everything, but the Sea of Galilee definitely it's just something that you wouldn't want to miss. Just being by the water, touching the water, listening. Right, the presence of God is just everywhere. I guess that just makes, instead of being in a smaller area, right, God can be in, this is like being in a large area and still feeling God's presence all around you. The large body of water at the time provided economic income from fishing. Many of Jesus' disciples were fishermen, of course, and Jesus called them from catching fish to catching men. Jesus taught from Peter's boat on this sea. He calmed the storm on the sea, and he walked on this exact water. And there you can see a boat going across the water. Here's some cactus that I saw on the shore, trying to capture the cactus in the foreground and the shoreline and the water crashing. And then a couple pictures I'm just trying to fit in here. And then Lee made a little caption here. I prayed for you at the Sea of Galilee with her rosary. So a time for prayer and peacefulness, reflection. One of the favorite parts of the trip, even though every part of the trip was my favorite. And there's Lee, yeah. Like I said, time of reflection. Just stare out in the water and just think and pray, reflect, ponder.
Hello, everyone. I am back. So, okay, Sea of Galilee. Whoa, just whoa. This is where, as Jesse mentioned, 90% of Jesus' miracles happen and where he did most of his active ministry. It's just amazing, just absolutely amazing. I'm still in awe that I was actually able to be there, and everything just seemed surreal. I mean, this was such a magical place for me. So as I was participating in one of Mike's rosary recording at this place, I was just thinking about back in time where Jesus actually walked on this water, like on the sea. He literally performed his miracle here on this sea. So for me, that was just mind blowing. And of course, if the moment wasn't already special enough when we were actually saying the rosary and contemplating everything that was going on, the heavens literally opened up, as you can tell, and the skies just blessed us, and just rays of the lights came down, and this was actually the most beautiful place, the most beautiful pictures that we captured, and just the most beautiful moments. So this I am grateful for, and I will always cherish. And I hope you too will be able to cherish the same moments one of these days.
All right, the primacy of Peter. After Jesus had risen from the dead, he appeared numerous times during the 40 days before his ascension. On one day, Peter and several others were fishing on the Sea of Galilee, and from the beach, Jesus calls out to them to cast out their nets on the right side of the boat. On doing so, the catch was so great, it nearly broke the nets. Recognizing Jesus, Peter sprang from the boat to get to shore to be with the Lord. There, next to a charcoal fire, we don't know where Jesus got the charcoal. He's God, so he can make charcoal come out of nowhere. Jesus asked Peter 3 times, "Do you love me?" "Yes, Lord, you know I love you. Feed my sheep." "Do you love me, Peter?" "Yes, Lord, you know I love you. Tend my sheep." Third time, Jesus asked him, "Do you love me, Peter?" "Yes, Lord, you know I love you. Feed my sheep." Jesus responds. Peter's repeated declaration. After this, Jesus foretells the death by which Peter was to give glory to God. "You will stretch out your hands, and another will gird you and carry you where you do not wish to go." Just like I said in previous slides, that Peter was crucified upside down. This is the spot right here. So there's Byzantine crosses, and there's ruins right here. So this was many pilgrims from thousands of years ago marked this spot as being the one where the primacy of Peter was, where all this scripture took place. So we got to stand here and throw rocks in the water and pretend like we were there at that moment. There's the rocks. This was kind of blocked off so people couldn't walk on these rocks. There's another, so you can see the ancient stair steps here. This is a holy ground. And here is a view. So this picture was taken from a boat. And then here's our pictures looking outward into the water. So little dark rocks here on the shore. Okay, this was really interesting. This is one of the things that as I was kind of like exploring in my faith, and there's a point where I thought I'd go church shopping in my 20s and say, hey, just because my parents are Catholic doesn't mean I need to be Catholic. I want to know why, what else is out there. This little exhibit here is cool because it lists all the popes beginning with St. Peter in 42 AD up until today with Pope Francis I at the end of this here as the 266th pope. A little longer than U.S. presidents, right? I mean, the U.S. has been around for just kind of a fraction of the time how long the church has been. What do we have? Like 40 some presidents, but we have 266 popes throughout history. So this one right here is St. Peter, starting the very beginning. It's from 42 AD to 67 AD. And then ever since then, right, it's just been handed down, right? Hands have been laid down on priests and bishops. This, in a unending connection from Peter. The Protestant Reformation happened during the reign of the 219th Pope. That would have been Pope Clement VII. So in 1517 is when the Protestant Reformation began. So this has me always, I'm always curious on like why for 1500 years there was only one church. If we all would have been born during any of this time, we would have went to one church, and there wouldn't be different churches, and we wouldn't talk about, well, my church does this, your church does that. Look how long that went on, right? And for I guess one exception, there were two churches after the schism in 1054. Nevertheless, there were just one or two, whatever, after the the Orthodox Church was split off. But for Christians nowadays, there are 45,000 denominations. So we went all this time, one church, and then for this piece of history, we have 45,000 denominations. So why, right? I mean, I always wonder, like, why did this happen? And so I put a smiley face because I'm not going to go into that. That's a whole nother conversation. It's fun to talk about history. Be glad to have that conversation. It's always fascinating to me. Moving on to some more cool pictures. Some of these pretty flowers and trees with the water, Sea of Galilee in the background, and then the primacy of Peter. Lee, I called her Jasmine. Put this little caption here where Jesus reconciled with Peter. She stood in the same water and area and rocks and shoreline where Jesus reconciled with Peter. Oh, and then she bounces into this section here because I had to fill up the spot with another picture and I had to put her in there, of course. Okay. In the evening after the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus fed the 5,000 with the multiplication of 5 loaves and 2 small fish, and he did in this area. So over like to the right side of this mountain, on the mountainside here, was the Mount of the Beatitudes and the Sermon on the Mount. Later that evening, all these 5,000 people walk over here, and the multiplication of the loaves would have happened right in this area. And guess what? This is where we had lunch, of course. So gotta make things make it real, right? To make it feel like make the connections of feeding of the 5,000. So we had to have our own little more fish with heads on it. Lee is in heaven again. This is also the site where Jesus appeared for the 4th time after his resurrection. So there's 2 places in the Bible where this is mentioned. There's the restaurant in Tagba, multiplication of the loaves. And these are dates. They look like bugs, right? But those are actually dates from the palm trees. I didn't try some. Lee did, of course, because she eats anything, because she's Laotian, and that's what they do. And she said they were delicious, so I'll take her word for it. Okay, close by the scene of the feeding and the multiplication of the loaves and the fishes is a hillside in which a small, shallow cave has been carved. Right here, this is called Eremos Cave, which means lonely place. Its proximity to Tagba, Capernaum, and the Mount of Beatitudes makes it likely, highly likely, I might add, that this is the place to which Jesus went to pray in the early hours of the day. So look at that, a close-up of a cave where Jesus would have spent many times praying. You cannot find a passage in the Bible where Jesus does not begin the day or end the day going off to some place to pray. So we know he prayed, even though he was the Son of God, he still prayed to his Father. So I couldn't imagine, I just can't imagine, like, how many times did he come to the spot, right? And that he was actually here alone. How cool. I wish I could have been here, by myself and spend time praying, just to kind of reflect and think about him just like sitting right next to you praying. So we need to think about how often do we the same. Begin our day and end our day with prayer. I guess I need to think about more about that and be more diligent about that. Sometimes it's hard to do when it's in the chaos of your own home. So you got to find caves or chapels to do so. Here is Lee and I in Eremos' cave. There is Lee praying, pretend like she's praying with Jesus. Not pretending Jesus is there, right? Because where 2 or more are gathered, there he is in the midst of us. So Jesus is here praying with us in spirit. And then throw in some more pictures. So from the cave, looking out towards the Sea of Galilee, you can see the beautiful yellow flowers. There's the road that we drove next to, the Sea of Galilee. Eremos Cave is right here. I think I'm looking up at it now. Yeah, so pictures from it and then pictures from below. Okay, so there is a rock above Eremos Cave. Why is this rock here? What's the significance of it? Early 4th century diaries talked about the veneration of 3 rocks. One was this rock above the Eremos Cave. So Jesus would have prayed here as well as inside the cave, right? So there's, if you walk around this hillside, there is no other cave, right? The caves mentioned in the Bible. We know it's, the geography is here somewhere. So in process of elimination, there are no other caves, so we know that's the cave. And then this rock is mentioned in these diaries, so we know Jesus would have prayed here as well. So, or is it just another rock, right? Like I said, we've seen a lot of rocks on this virtual pilgrimage and actual pilgrimage that we went on. If you didn't know any better, you just stumbled upon this rock. It's just another rock. Who cares, right? But if Jesus would have leaned up against this rock, kneeled by it, sat on top of it, then all of a sudden it has major significance, right? Because then you could do the same and think about what it was like to have him there with you. So a little close-up of the view. So I'm getting kind of a shot right off of that rock, looking out to the Sea of Galilee, trying to think about what would Jesus pray about as he's sitting here? What am I going to pray about? Lee did a little artistic view here. This was a little frame that she found and then put the words "come and see," Jesus' words, and then there is a view, another view kind of overlooking from the rock, Sea of Galilee. Okay, the 7 springs. I'm going to show you. I talked about where did Jesus meet the first time and calling of the apostles. So just below the cave. So here's the cave, Eremos Cave. Just below this, at the base of the hills, is the road. Right, that road runs parallel to the shoreline. This is the same road Jesus would have came down where he met Simon, Andrew, James, and John. Simon Peter, that is, as they were washing out their nets, because this is a fresh water, so you need fresh water to wash out the nets. It's the only waterfall in the region, so once again, process of elimination, there's only one waterfall. This had been the waterfall that they were at when Jesus came upon them for the first time. Matthew 14:22 through 23. Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and precede him to the other side while he dismissed the crowds. After doing so, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. So the calling of the apostles, so I'm kind of going back and forth. Now I'm standing at Eremos Cave. From here, I'm looking out. This waterfall right here is below these trees. And we couldn't get, you can see people are walking here, but we couldn't really get all 90 of us down here just because the water was high. And so it required us to really wade in some deep water to get there. So we didn't get the close-up view. We actually got this view from the boat though. With the elevated view from the Eremos Cave, Jesus would have seen the apostles pass by in their boat before approaching them as he walked on the water. So kind of funny, right, to think about Jesus sitting in this cave all by himself, and he's looking out in this water, and he's seeing the apostles in the boat, chugging along, and he's getting ready, right? At some point, he's going to say, okay, once I get to right here, I'm going to go approach them while I'm walking on the water, and that's the spot where it happened. Isn't that cool? You could see the actual spot where it happened. You have an actual picture instead of just the Bible with words. The boat ride. So guess what? You get to do a boat ride if you do this awesome pilgrimage. This is the Moses boat. This is not the boat we took. It's kind of a boat that looks like a boat we went on. I'll show you that. So before I get to that boat, didn't get a whole lot of time. Just walk past the display. There's an ancient Galilean boat that was discovered right here. This was found underneath in the waters on the shore of the Sea of Galilee. That was the remains of it. This is a wooden piece right here from the first century boat. This was found in 1986. So they just found this not that long ago. Dates back to the first century. This is what it would have looked like. So this is as good a picture as you're going to get of what Jesus and the apostles would have been in a boat that looked like this. Not the one that we rode in today, even though that kind of looks legit, right? Here is some artistic sculptures that there's a guitar that is overlooking the Sea of Galilee. That's right on the shoreline there. This is King David. So I took a picture of the name of our boat. This is right. The sign is on our boat. It's King David boat because they got the best boat. It's the party boat, of course. That's the one we need to be on because we're all about the party and having fun. Here's the front of our boat, and there we are. All 90 of us fit on this boat. So it was cool. We could get all of us on there. This was fun. This is one of the highlights of the trip. Every part is a highlight, but this is definitely a must see. I would not want to miss this for the world. Okay, I'm ducking out of the picture because I don't want to show myself. So this is a continuation of the boat ride on the Sea of Galilee. Here's my Titanic shot here. I didn't get up on the railings here to kind of do my Titanic pose, but this was so cool just to be on the Sea of Galilee, right, on a boat ride, actually be on the water and get a real authentic feel for it. Highly recommend do it. This is a must see attraction. It's one thing to kind of see it from the shore, but yeah, to get out in the water, and I just love boat rides anyways, right? It's peaceful, and right, just a chance to kind of really connect with where you're at. So on the water, we got a view. You remember the Mount of Beatitudes? So from the water, you can see there is the chapel of the Mount of Beatitudes, and then the 5,000 people that heard the Sermon on the Mount would have been in this natural amphitheater right here. And let me show you. I did this because I want to show a clip of just a few seconds clip here of the water. So yeah, hour and a half boat ride as you heard. Oh my gosh. The video was kind of okay. There was a bird flying across the water that was kind of neat to see, but I just want to do more than just photos and show videos because it's so unprofessional too, isn't it? But oh well. Some final photos here of the boat ride on the Sea of Galilee. There we are, happy as can be on a little boat ride. Oh, making out again on the boat. I'm sure Jasmine appreciates this. Our daughter loves to see us kissing. There's me. I love this. Just staring out there and just thinking. I could have this could have been like 4 hours and I would not have been bored. Just a time to reflect and stare at the Sea of Galilee and think about life. So peaceful. The boat ride was cool. Some cool pictures of some of the colors of the trees on the shoreline. And then this was neat. They actually try to catch fish, right? We didn't catch the 153 fish that Jesus did, but we tried anyway. It just didn't drag the nets long enough, I guess. We didn't catch any fish, but we threw the nets overboard to see if we could put out for a catch. No luck. That's why we had the fish at the restaurant. All right, one more. Yeah, let me tell you something here. We had there was another boat out there. It was kind of mysterious, right? It was really dark. Couldn't really see who was in it. It looked like there was like a dozen or so people. I couldn't really tell. It just started heading our direction. It was real mysterious. Kind of got a little concerned. And then it got like closer, and like, here's what we saw. What? Jesus and the 12 apostles were actually in that boat. So what a coincidence. We went on this pilgrimage. We went all these places, saw ruins and just things that happened 2,000 years ago. And then we get to the Sea of Galilee and Jesus is actually there with his 12 apostles. So that was probably the highlight of the trip. So yes, we actually, I had them autograph like my shirt just so I could prove that I saw Jesus and the apostles in real life on the Sea of Galilee. Okay, the joke's over. If you've seen The Chosen, you knew this was a hoax from the beginning. If you didn't see The Chosen, I hope you knew this was a hoax. But that is the cast of The Chosen. If you haven't seen The Chosen, I highly recommend it. It's an awesome supplement to your faith, to give you a visual, it's a video on screen portrayal of Scripture. So highly recommend it. So yeah. Pretty fun. That looked like those guys had a lot of fun filming this scene on the Sea of Galilee. Well, it's not the Sea of Galilee. That's like in Oklahoma or somewhere. So a little joke, had to be funny. I'm trying to keep you guys engaged. I know this is like a 3 hour and 11-minute tour so far. So a 3-hour tour. Okay, had to play. Who says you can't have fun out here? This, a lot of seriousness and remarkable things we saw, right? But then at the end of this, I like how we ended this where we had fun. So I'm going to show you clips of the ending of the boat ride, which is just about pure fun and joy and happiness and celebration of life like it should be, right? Oh, come on. And then there was one more I had to show you that was really neat. Oh, that's not it. That's not it. There we go. Look at Mike. Man, all we were missing was like the booze cruise. That was very fun and entertaining. Definitely one of the highlights. Okay, let's transition from Dancing Queen and ABBA songs to Mount Tabor. Yeah, did that surprise you? Was it easy to find Lee in those pictures? Does that surprise anyone that knows her dancing to that? So, all right, this is day 10 where we are on the home stretch here of this pilgrimage. Mount Tabor, there's a Mount of Transfiguration, Matthew 17:1. Jesus ascends Mount Tabor, bringing with him Peter, James, and John, and Jesus. And Peter, James, and John, and Jesus is transfigured before their eyes. His countenance altered, and his raiment become dazzling white. With Jesus appear Moses, representing the law, and Elijah, representing the prophets, both of which find their fulfillment in Jesus. So here we are walking up to the church on the Mount Tabor, and here is inside. So we had Mass here. This was really cool because we had Mass here, and then like 30 hours later, we were at home in Holy Trinity having Mass. What this scripture gospel reading was the Mount of Transfiguration. So that was pretty cool to make that connection. There's a zoomed in view, so Jesus and we got Moses representing the law and Elijah representing the prophets. And then you got the three apostles on the side, so it's a zoomed in picture of that. And then here's a picture of the altar, which is right here. You can see the painting depicting the scene as well. All right, so here is close up. If you walk up to the altar, you can see the actual rocks and the stones. More rocks, like I said, we see a bunch of rocks. This is covered up. You can see it through the glass floor to see the actual rocks where they would have stood when heaven opened up and Moses and Elijah appeared in the sky right above this place. And you have Simon, Peter, James, and John, and Jesus all standing here on these rocks. So you can kind of peek. Couldn't go down there and touch it, but you could peek through the glass floor and see the actual spots where this was. Right here is a baptismal font from the 4th century. And you can see that I didn't quite understand why there were peacocks here in the windows. Didn't get an explanation of that. And just some views from the outside of the church. And then this is, you can see how high up we were on Mount Tabor overlooking the valley below. And there we are again, one of the last few photos of us on this pilgrimage. A few more pictures. This was the picture from below of Mount Tabor. And then there's even more. There's me. Everyone take turns. Well, not everyone. So yeah, some people. The prayer bag. So all of our prayers were in this bag. We brought it to each site and laid them on each site, just like we laid our rosaries and all the gifts that we brought for our friends and families. We laid them down on these sites. So there was prayers that we brought with us that laid upon each site. So I got to carry the prayer bag at this site. Here is the scene, or here's the view from below as we're getting ready to board the vans. We took separate vans to go up the windy road up to the top of Mount Tabor. There's the church right there. View from the bottom. And then go figure, there's hang gliders. They put a big tourist attraction on Mount Tabor where people could be hang gliding above, up in the sky where the heavens are open. And yeah, isn't that crazy? Yeah, that's kind of ruins the ambiance a little bit by seeing tourist attraction there. But I guess for those people, they got a great view. Here's some more ruins off to the side that was next to the church, and then just across in a gate as we're entering that area. Okay, so back in day one, if you remembered, I might have vaguely mentioned more to come on this later on the birthplace of John the Baptist. Bringing you back there because this would have been a total distraction for this whole pilgrimage if I would have brought this up at the time, because this is what I'm about to kind of walk you through and show you occurred at the birthplace of John the Baptist. There you have two pictures here. The one on the left was taken by a lady who was in line in front of us. We were just like right behind her. She's from Iowa, by the way, so that obviously makes her legit and cool. The picture on the right was taken 2 minutes after the picture on the left. Right? This is us getting in line. You can see the scaffolding because this area was under construction. Birthplace of John the Baptist is right here, which is shown up. Here's a close-up of it. And so here's her pictures. This is a picture she showed us on her phone. 1 minute 2 minutes apart between these two pictures. And then there is a picture that mysteriously showed up on her phone. She showed this to us. It was timestamped 1 minute after the first picture she took and 1 minute before the second picture from the previous slide. And this is what showed up. This is what we saw. Wow. What? What is going on here? This is every time I've shown this to a few people, and they're usually like, there's a couple of different reactions. They're either like speechless. Most people are speechless. They don't know what to do with this. You're skeptical. All your skeptics in your mind kind of come up, and you want to explain things away because you're like, you just can't believe. There's got to be a rational explanation for everything, right? Science is supposed to explain everything, but in God's eyes, science doesn't explain everything. He intervenes when he wants to. So a lot going on here. So I love this kind of stuff. So I saw this picture. I'm like, I need to see this. I want to zoom in and see what the heck is going on here and try to explain this and investigate on my own and make my own observations. A woman here appears. This is the most clear part of this picture. Appears to be a woman, right? And it looks to me like a beautiful woman, a woman with distinct features that you would normally see about Mary. So I'm going to go ahead and say I think Mary is appearing in this picture. And then you can kind of, I didn't see this initially on her phone, but you definitely can see long hair here and then another hand extending right here. We're looking like a figure above Mary, which would probably be appropriate, right? With Jesus being divine is above Mary. I say that, yeah, this looks like Jesus. And then is this Mary's left hand? There's definitely a hand here. I'm pretty sure that's obvious to everyone. Left hand with Mary, right hand with Jesus, maybe. Maybe giving some sort of blessing to whoever is in this picture, which is interesting because we just, a minute later, we walked right through this passageway. The picture, it does look like the scene, so right off the bat, right, this looks like the scene near the marked site of John's birth when you look to, like when you're looking to the left here of it. And then you can see that, remember I mentioned the scaffolding, right? I can see the scaffolding that's still in this photo. This archway, right? So here's the archway. You see the scaffolding. Like, okay, at least this picture was taken at this spot. But things get really odd in the bottom of this photo. The gold trim. There's gold trim here. If you zoom in on this photo, this is just kind of the gold trim kind of goes like this way, kind of left to right. But in this photo, it turns into like a votive candle stand, and then there's lights and smoke bending up, like like spirits, in represented in the photo, right? This is pretty crazy, just having these lights kind of bend up, and then the row of lights here is in a three-dimensional way. That is not how it was in real life. And then who are these figures? This looks kind of like one of our tour guides, Joseph. His hair looks the same, but like if you zoom in, like there's big green bulgy eyes. It looks kind of like him, except he wasn't wearing like this robe. This V-necked robe here is blowing my mind. Let me go to the next slide. All right, so I had to mess around with the colors. I'm like, okay, let me see. On my Apple phone, I did some editing and brought out the colors just to see if I could see something more distinct, and really brought out the blue. And I just haven't figured out what this red is on Mary's, this woman that appears to be Mary's cloak. I can't tell if this is like her other arm reaching out, even though there's no hand there. But the colors, more vibrant colors kind of bring things out. And then now let's go to the next slide and zoom in. So who are these figures? I'm zooming on those figures at the bottom. I like to speculate, and I just don't. Well, I don't even know who this is. Right? Is God trying to show us what the scene was like in the past? And is there combined scenes going on here? Is this like, King Herod? Is this like this looks like kind of like an evil figure? I kind of see like red eyes here. I don't know if that's like a demon of some sort. And then is this like this almost looks, that could be like a pope's head or something talking to somebody? I don't know, pure speculation. Here's a zoomed in view of the, you can see the lights kind of bending up, and then like smoke or lights or whatever, right? This is I mean, I've seen pictures like this in other sites as I'm kind of trying to figure out whether or not pictures, miraculous photos, are real or not. This is really rare. I mean, that's a lot of detail, a whole lot of detail in a photo. Here is a zoomed in view of Mary and Jesus. So you can kind of see like a nose. It's really like, yeah, very distinct nose, mouth features, eyebrows, hair, veil. I mean, there was, if you want to try to tell me that there was a lady in our group that looked like this, so staying off to the left side where there's no one supposed to be because it's a construction area, then I'm going to say no, absolutely not. There was no one dressed like this wearing these, wearing this. So why did this show up out of the blue, right? In my experience, God allows miracles in science and the laws of nature to be defied in order to bring otherwise lost souls to Him, right? When nothing else works, He'll intervene. For those who already believe, it's just kind of a nice hello, right? This is Him just saying hello, you know, I'm assuring us that His presence is real and He's ever present. So in that case, right, the photo served its purpose. But there may be more to this photo. Who knows, right? It's don't know what else is going to become of this. It's certainly 1 in a million though, right? It's kind of mind blowing. Kind of stops people in the tracks. They either are uncomfortable by it and they just want to move on because they can't explain it, don't know what to do with it. But me, I'm like, ooh, wow, like I really want to know. I really want to know why this photo showed up, and I can tell you that it's legit, 100% legit. Okay, farewell dinner. It's time to bring this theme to a close on our way to the Tel Aviv airport. We had our last dinner together on the Mediterranean coast, and they gave us alcohol. We had some wine. I'm not a big wine drinker, but I'm like, hey, it's time to party and celebrate. We made it on our pilgrimage. So there's a little toast, and then boom, 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 boom. Here's all the pictures of everybody. One last time, enjoying our last meal together before we farewell. So sad. All good things come to an end, though. You're just gonna have to do this trip again sometime. We caught the sunset right as we were showing up. So here's a picture of the sun going down over, this is the Mediterranean Sea in the background there. Just catching the sun go down past the water on the shoreline. Some more cool pictures of sunset, and then there we are. I think we're about done of pictures of us. And there is Lee hanging out there on the walkway out there, outside of the restaurant. Boom, boom, boom. And then darkness comes and the stars come out, and we get to collect some seashells here and touch the water one last time before we head to the airport. So we're going to get on the airplane late at night and do a overnight flight back home. And there's a picture of our shadow in the Mediterranean Sea on the beach. How cool. Okay, here is Lee being artistic, taking pictures of all the doors. There was a poster of the doors of the Holy Land, so I thought I would do, or there was a poster of doors of Jerusalem, and so we actually had pictures of all of Holy Land. So I put this little collage together to be artistic and show all the pictures she took. So here you go. I timed this so they'd all kind of come in one after another. So there you go, doors of the Holy Land. This is a pretty much wraps it up here for our trip. So in conclusion, was it worth it? Yes, mortgage the house if you have to. We didn't have to quite do that. I'm saying this was something I was going to do when I retired anyway, so I'm just borrowing money from our retirement fund. We'll keep working, work longer if we have to, but we had to go. We had to do it. We felt God calling us to do it. And now I'm finally visualizing, finding myself visualizing these sites, right? When I pray the rosary or read scripture, I mean, I immediately go to what I saw when I was there. The tourist in me wants to go back right away, but the pilgrim in me says, You don't have to. I have these conflicting feelings, right? Because I feel like I need to go back, but yet, you know, God is always with us no matter where we are in the world, right? So I didn't have to go to the Holy Land to meet God, to talk to God, right? You don't, but even if you do go, when you come back, well, guess what? Your relationship with Him is, no different. He is ever present. He's always there, so you can reach out to Him without going to the Holy Land. So even though um, I highly recommend going because it's going to make it more meaningful and intimate, and you get the put together. You get to see the fifth gospel, as they call it, and see the geography where walk in Jesus' footsteps and see the things that He saw. Um, but it's not necessary. So how long did it take for the devil to steal my peace? Well, I just needed to open my suitcase and see the broken bottle of wine that my wife packed and tried to bring home and didn't pack very well and secure it. Um, I remember seeing the suitcase like tip over, but didn't think anything of it. So a bottle of wine broke in our suitcase. Wine was all over, and it ruined our nice pilgrimage certificates that we got. You can see they were all ruined. So I saw this, and I immediately said like a naughty word in front of my mom, and then I had to go to confession like the next day or two. Just so typical, right? I just get picked on. Stuff like this just to tempt me to show me how human I am and how prone to stupid little sins like this. But I'm over it now.
Hey everyone, it's finally me. I know I love my husband as much as you do, but his voice does get a little monotonous. So just trying to interject some excitement. Anyway, my final thoughts on the trip. First and foremost, I there's so many ways I could have done this pilgrimage, but I would never ever do anything else but through the School of Faith. It's just amazing. I can't even explain to you how much more meaningful it is because I've traveled so much in my life, but just like my husband says, is that a rock or is that in a church? Unless you know the story behind it and no one knows the stories more than Mike and the team. And so I'm very grateful for them. And so if you decide to go on this pilgrimage, which we highly recommend, then definitely go with the School of Faith. Not only that, but the friendships are amazing that you made. I mean, I'm thinking, gosh, 90 people is a huge group. How are we going to get to know everyone? But um, the time that you spend with them just made it all worth it. And they too made the pilgrimage come alive for us and made it that much more special. Um, and again, being a pilgrim versus a tourist was my utmost important to me, I think, in my mind, because you always want to be pampered, and when you're on trip, you want to do your own thing and stuff. But I was there to bring my own intentions about my family and some of my friends, and wanted to stay prayerful and be intentional about why I was there, and just to get closer to Jesus and to find out who He is. If He's going to become my best friend, this is the best way to find out about your best friend.